What is up, Wizards? We are doing something very special tonight because as I record this, we are looking forward to the Spider-Man set coming out, unless we're not. And then right after that, the Avatar the Last Airbender set coming out in just a couple of months. So it is a time in Magic right now. You can define that time however you want to, but it's even getting to me on occasion where, two sets in a row are not Magic sets. The Final Fantasy set was great, but it wasn't, a Magic set, despite how Magic it felt. I like what they did with it, but this year and the coming years may be, a bunch of years that don't include that much Magic. And that, sometimes makes me want to go back like Bobby Womack and look at some of the things that made me fall in love with Magic in the first place. And as an 11-year-old kid walking into my local game store in 1995, what I was mostly buying was Fallen Empires, because over that summer, they were 88 cents a pack, which is ridiculous. Even for Fallen Empires, that's a pretty good deal. And one day we may do Fallen Empires here. But the set that felt unattainable to me at the time was the Dark, which was before Fallen Empire's most recent set. This would go on to be the last of the Four Horsemen sets of classic Magic. And even though it's not worth as much as Antiquities, Arabian Nights, Legends, or the original Alpha Beta sets, it's still a set with a lot of good, iconic, expensive too, cards that captured my imagination when I was a kid. I really liked the themes and aesthetics of the set. The Brothers' War had happened, and now you had this blasted just landscape of people, different factions, groups, cults, religions, remnants of governments trying to, hold and establish what little power they had left. And the forest civilizations, mostly above a lot of it, but the politics of the region are creeping into the forest even. So there's a lot going on in the Dark. That sort of lends itself to these gothic themes that we hadn't really seen too much of in Magic before. So it was just a really, really neat set to me thematically when I was a kid. And as I've grown up, it's gone on to be one of my favorite of the sort of Golden Age sets and has become my favorite of the Four Horsemen sets. Walking into my local game store and seeing stuff like Skull of Orm, which was a whole $10 at the time and just unattainable to a 12-year-old dev. And especially cards like I'll say later that were unattainable at the time and have become huge milestones in my collecting Magic life because I've been able to get a couple of copies of some of these cards. And so, with all that said, the Dark means a lot to me, and I think that in what some would define as a dark period in Magic the Gathering, it's fun sometimes to go back and look at what made us fall in love with the game in the first place and what we will always have, and they can't take away from us. You know what I mean? So with that said, tonight we're going to do one of these full set speed runs, but it's going to be what you guys have asked for a lot in the comments, and that is a full set speed run of a classic set. And I think inaugurally we will do the Dark because it is, again, my favorite of all these old school sets, and one of the factors, one of the sets that made me fall in love with Magic in the first place. And there was a certain mystique to this set, a certain unattainability, and again, thematically, a lot of sort of intrigue that pulled me into the set too. So love this thing, and tonight we're going to look at it, both to pull the heartstrings of people who were there at the time, because it's a very nostalgic set for a lot of us, and also to introduce some people who have only been around for the Arena era, or maybe even just you've been playing forever, but you started during Affinity or something like that, and you weren't there for the Dark. There's a lot of hidden gems in this set you can play in Commander and other formats for that matter that I think are really, really cool. So let's get to it. Let's discover or rediscover the Dark together. And as usual, we will be assigning letter or number grades to each and every one of these cards. We start in color order, and we start with Angry Mob down here. Now, this is 4 mana, 2 and double white for a 2-star human nowadays with trample. During your turn, the stars below are both equal to the total number of swamps all opponents control. During any other player turn, equals 0. So everyone else's turn, 3 turns out of 4 in Commander. This is a 4 mana 2/2 trample. Okay. However, on your turn, let's say, best case scenario, someone at the table, perhaps you, has an Urborg. Let's say that's going on. You know what I mean? This is potentially, let's say everyone at the table, all of your opponents have an average of 6 lands apiece. This is a 20/20 on your turn with trample, the rare white creature with trample. So this is kind of neat. Again, especially if you control the Urborg and you're kind of helping this along. And suddenly, you know, a 14/14 at the low end trample is definitely a workable creature. So I'm actually going to start this with a 4.1 for Angry Mob. It's pretty situational. But even if only one person at the table has swamps and they have 8 of them, yeah, 10/10. Trample on your turn. You know what I mean? It's not like that bad. So Blood of the Martyr is up next. This is 3 white mana for an instant. For the remainder of the turn, you may redirect damage done to any number of creatures to yourself instead. Now, that's kind of neat, especially with pariah effects. You know, let's say you've got a pariah on a creature. Well, a bunch of creatures take damage. You can redirect the damage to yourself, which redirects the damage to the creature wearing the pariah, which I think is kind of neat if that creature has indestructible or something like that. But it's still cool that it's an instant. You know, you can block up, and then maybe just take as much as little really as 3 damage, and that can change combat dramatically, right? Like, let's say this guy's going to take, you know, just to lethal. So all I have to do is prevent 1 damage to him. This guy's going to take 2 more than lethal. So all I have to do is take 4 damage to this. My guys survive, your guys die or whatever. Like, you can really mess with combat with this card. So it's actually not so bad, but relatively narrow, might sit in your hand for too long. So I'm going to give this a 3.7, but I do think it has its uses. Seriously. Brainwash is a single white mana for enchant creature, an aura that enchants a creature. Target creature may not attack unless its controller pays 3 in addition to any other cost required for the creature to attack. So not Swords to Plowshares, but still 1 mana pseudo removal against like aggro decks and stuff. Not the worst card ever. I'll give it a 3.5, and I'm serious. Nowhere near the other removal spells we have access to, but still a better removal spell than it might appear in a sort of game where tempo matters. You know, not a bad tempo-y run. Cleansing is up next. Maybe our first rare. This is a 3 white mana for a sorcery. All lands are destroyed. It's a good start. Players may prevent cleansing from destroying specific lands by paying 1 life for each land they wish to protect. Effects that prevent or redirect damage can't be used to counter this loss of life. Cool art by Pete Venters on this. I just like the way it looks. Altogether, this is an Armageddon for 1 less mana, but much harder to cast in a lot of ways than Armageddon. That said, not terrible, but I think most people are just going to pay the life. You also have to pay life to make sure your lands aren't lost to this, so you got to keep that in mind. Maybe in a deck that plays a lot of artifacts or creature-based ramp or something, you can try to make an effect like this work. But even if your opponents have, 7 or 8 lands, they're probably just going to take the damage and keep their lands in play. They could also, ditch 2 lands and take 2 or take 4, whatever it is, and that'd be fine. Altogether, I think this is probably a trap. Yeah, 3 mana for everyone to hate me. Sounds good. Yeah, that's another consideration for this, It is kind of white burn, which there's a fair number of cards like that in this set specifically that we'll get to. But altogether, I think it probably is a trap. I'm going to label this card a 3.3 because ultimately I think it just like lava axes everyone. And you're right. My actual real life cousin Jason in chat. You are correct that everyone's just going to hate your guts. So I'm not sure it's worth it either. Dust to Dust is a good Magic card, though. This is 3 mana for a sorcery. Removes 2 artifacts from the game. So, exile 2 artifacts? A 2 for 1 for 3 mana? The exiles? Yeah, it's fine. I'll give it a 5. I think this is actually a playable Magic card, right out of 5. And if I'm not mistaken, it hasn't been reprinted a million times. Maybe like 5th edition and one other time. But, yeah, it's good. It's not so bad. Exorcist is 2 mana. Can you see its PT? Not quite. This is double white for Summon Exorcist. It's a human cleric nowadays. It's a 1/1, and if you pay 1 and a white and tap it, you can destroy target black creature. That is all right. It's really okay, man. This is, Color Hoser, but it's a really good Color Hoser, and it'll probably find a target at a lot of commander tables. It's really funny if it just kills their commander. You gotta worry about that. There's not a whole lot of cards that straight up do something like this, So think of it with Agatha's Soul Cauldron. You're passing this activated ability around. It's kind of neat. Is it on the reserve list? It'll say if it is. It is definitely a card you don't see every day. Yeah, part of the reserve list. So there you go. What is this card priced at right now? I think it's relatively cheap. Yeah, $10, which means that you can probably get a copy of it on TCG Player for like $5 to $6, heavily played. So that's not a bad deal. It's really not for a reserve list card that you can actually play with. That's really not. I'm going to give Exorcist a 5.5. You know, narrow, but it's got, for a narrow card, it's got a wide range of targets, like weirdly enough. Next is Fasting's card is really bad, like really bad, perhaps the worst card in the set. Fasting is a single white mana for an enchantment. You may choose to skip your draw phase, your whole draw step. If you do, gain 2 life. If you draw a card for any reason, destroy Fasting. During your upkeep, put a hunger counter on Fasting. When Fasting has 5 hunger counters on it, it is destroyed. So you skip your draw step for 5 turns to gain a total of 10 life, and then you have to get rid of Fasting. If you also, apart from your draw step, if you draw a card ever for any reason, you have to get rid of this. This is dog water. This is horseradish. This is really, really, really awful. It's so bad. Again, like, potential worst card in the set, I'm going to give this a 1. It's really just awful. There might be reasons to skip your draw step, but they're so narrow that no, don't try it. Festival is up next. Kind of a fog effect that you have to time correctly. A single white mana for an instant. Opponent may not declare an attack this turn. Play only during an opponent's upkeep phase for some reason. This isn't as good as Fog or Holy Day, because this, you know, with Fog or Holy Day, you can wait until, or Darkness even, you can wait until they tap their creatures down and then cast the effect. That's not going to happen. So it is worse than a Fog, but I still really like Fog, and I think this is a playable card in like a Turbo Fog list that needs a bunch of redundant Fog effects. So sounds narrow, but Turbo Fog's a good list, and even lists that aren't specifically Turbo Fog will still want to run effects like this and perhaps redundancies of them. Especially if you're mono white, you don't have access to a lot of the good Fogs. This might be a thing. So I'm going to give this card a 4.9. I think that it is as close as you can get. And Fog effects in general are just good. Fire and Brimstone is 5 mana, 3 and double white for an instant. Fire and Brimstone does 4 damage to a player and 4 damage to you. It can only be used during a turn in which target player has declared an attack. I believe this may also hit Planeswalkers. Nope. Okay, I'm just making sure. There's a couple of things that you have to be on your toes about in these older sets, but Fire and Brimstone is just players. So they have to have attacked you. What have I done? They have to have attacked you that turn. And you deal 4 to them for 5 mana, and you also take 4. Abysmal. So bad. Really, really awful. Somebody in chat just says Dev. What up, Darth Bash? What's bad about it? This is banger after banger. The set itself, I think, is good in general, and the high notes are really high. The low notes are going to be low, and I think this is one of them. You know, you have to have been attacked just to hit them for 4, and it costs a whole 5 mana, and you take 4. It does break the color pie. It is more white burn, but I think they're experimenting with the idea of like Fire and Brimstone being like a preachery thing that white can do, you know. But ultimately this one is just bad. I'm going to give it a 1.4. It's pretty terrible. Holy Light is 3 mana. There you see a booty. That guy's booties on the card. This is 2 and a white for an instant. All non-white creatures get -1/-1 until end of turn. So at instant speed, this is actually okay. You think about it, you know, it's not so bad. I think that it's fine. I'm probably not going to play this in my commander deck for the most part, but I still think it's kind of neat. Again, you could really screw things up at instant speed with this and take out whole gangs of tokens and stuff. Like, that'd be cool. Like, whole boards full of like little dinky 1/1s. It's not like those don't exist. You know what I mean? Like, maybe aristocrats or something. Like, if you're playing against aristocrats, it'd probably be good for them that you're destroying half their board, but you'd still be destroying most of the like Zulaport got those blood artists and stuff. I just know that I've got a lot of X1s in my aristocrats decks, but either way, man, like, you don't usually see effects like this at instant speed. And you can make it, you know, one-sided in your mono white deck, so I don't know, I kind of want to like this. 5.2? Seriously. 5.2. It's not bad. Instant speed. Knights of Thorn. Yes, stops ball lightning dead. Sure does. Knights of Thorn is 4 mana, 3 and a white for a human knight nowadays. It's a 2/2. It has pro red and banding. So In case you don't know how banding works, creatures attack or block in a band. So if this attacks was anything else, this is how this. Let me tell you how this is supposed to work. what they expect you to do from this card. You're playing against red, right? They attack you, let's say, with their guys. You can block their creatures with your guys. You can block your creatures with their guys. Band your guys together with this dude and funnel all of the attacking damage into this man. So that basically none of your creatures take any damage, despite what blocked what, so long as they're in a band with this guy. Right. Same thing works on attacks. You know, you can attack in a band with multiple creatures, and if their red creatures block your guys, funnel the damage to this dude, bang. Is how this is supposed to work. Terrible card. Just not good. Does have a really, really cool sort of art on it. Good. Christopher Rush is always good for decent art. But altogether, it's not great. I'm going to say that this is like a 2.2. Banding's just not great. There's a reason they don't do it anymore. It's complicated and bad. Martyr's Cry is an interesting card from the dark. 2 white mana for a sorcery. All white creatures are removed from the game. Players must draw 1 card for each white creature they control that is lost in this manner. So this is actually a piece of card draw for you, the white player. This actually does. You know, you can remove a fair number of creatures from the table and draw like 6 for 2 mana. That's not bad. This card's only like $3 right now. I think it's actually a pretty good price. I don't know if it's reserve list, but I'm pretty sure it's only ever really been printed in the dark, so it's probably reserve list if I had to guess. But this is a fine card that you can actually use in a number of ways. It can be a pseudo sweeper against no other white decks in Commander, and white's fairly popular color there. But you know, you're playing white, so if you have a bunch of creatures you don't mind exiling, because it does exile, keep that in mind. If you have a bunch of creatures you don't mind exiling, you draw a lot off of those. So it is reserve list, I am told. So not a bad buy at all, and not an unplayable card for sure. I think you can draw a lot off of this card. So I'm going to give this a 6. I am serious. I'm really going to give this a 6. You know, you might ask, like, is it going to be worth it to wipe most of your board presence in order to, you know, draw 5? And yeah, I think sometimes it will be for 2 mana. You know, I think so. Miracle Worker is 1 white mana for a 1/1 Miracle Worker. I believe this is a human cleric nowadays. Tap it to destroy target enchantment card on a creature you control. So if your opponent has put a pacifism on one of your guys, you know, then suddenly you can destroy that pacifism. Neat in extremely, extremely narrow situations. You'll probably never actually play this card anywhere. So I will give this a 2.7, I think. I think that, you know, again, it's very specific. Morale is 3 mana, 1 and double white for an instant. All attacking creatures get +1/+1 till end of turn. Again, instant speed for an effect like this. Kind of the opposite of Holy Light. You know, all your dudes get +1/+1 instead of all their dudes get -1/-1. The other effect is better. This is not good anymore. It just isn't, but I have been bodied by this card in my Magic career. Way back in the day against like mono white weenies. It has happened, but I have to give morale like, you know, a 2. It's not great. Pikeman is also a pretty bad card. 1 and a white for summon Pikeman. This is a human soldier. It's a 1/1 banding first strike. So banding in first strike, that also takes out the dark ritual, not the dark rituals, the ball lightnings. This is also to block the ball lightnings in the set, which we will get to eventually. But Pikeman is just bad. I'm gonna give this a 1.9. Still a first striker, you know. Preacher, one of the chase rares from the set back in the day. 3 mana, 1 and double white for a 1/1 Preacher. Tap to gain control of an opponent's creature. Opponent chooses which creature you control. Boo. If creature becomes untapped, you lose control of the creature. You may choose not to untap Preacher as normal during your untap step. You also lose control of the creature if Preacher leaves play or at end of game. I like that they make sure you know that, like, you have to give it back to the person once the game's over. It's still their card. They own it. But yeah, you lose control of Preacher for any reason, or you untap Preacher, or Preacher becomes untapped. You lose control. So a mono white card that just lets you gain control of a creature, even though your opponent lets you choose it, it could still be pretty good, especially if they only control like 1 creature. Preacher's great. And Preacher might still also be kind of playable in you know, EDH, I guess. You could give it a shot. Definitely more playable than some of the other stuff we've seen so far. It might be fun to try and slam and everyone at the table be like, oh, Just need to have the ability to gain control of stuff. I'm going to give Preacher a 5.7. I think it's a pretty bad way to gain control of stuff, but White only has a few ways of doing it. Seriously. So, I don't know. I like it. Yeah, Platinum Angel says I can't lose the game. So, I never lost. Card's still mine. Yeah, I'll give Preacher above a 5, sure. Squire is 2 mana, 1 and a white for a 1/2, again, human knight, I think it might be here. Can I check that? Can I check? It could be a soldier, but it should be a knight. Human soldier, wow. I guess it's not a knight yet, right? It's on its way to being a knight, so it's a soldier. This is just 2 mana, 1/2 that does nothing else. Nothing else at all. Bad card, 1.2. I'll give it its power toughness. Tividar's Crusade is 3 mana, 1 and double white for a sorcery that destroys all goblins. It's the most situational card in the world, but if you're in the correct situation, best card. Best card in your deck, but, sideboard card for competitive environments. As far as, casual commander goes, if your buddy's playing goblins, whip this out, they'll be very mad at you. Come on, man. How much is this card? How much would it be to completely body your friend's commander deck if that's what they're doing? $2.45. It's worth it. It's worth it all day. This I'm going to give a 4 to. Again, when it's good, it's good. I'm being a little generous, but when it's good, it's good. Next is Witch Hunter. I like this card. Reprinted in Chronicles. 4 mana, 2 and double white for a 1/1 hunter. It's a human nowadays. Tap. Witch Hunter does 1 damage to target player. You can pay 1 and double white and tap this to return a creature an opponent controls from play to owner's hand. Enchantments on the creature are destroyed. We know. That's how magic works. Anyway. This is a white pinger, which you don't see, ever. So that's kind of neat. This is one of the cards I like a lot from this set. Not because it's a good card, necessarily, but just because I kind of like the steez here, The art is neat. A lot of people call this art not great, but I love it. I love the vibe of it, and how intimidating it kind of is. Imagine you open the door, you answer your front door, and this is what's standing on your front stoop. Definitely, it emits an energy. But, white tapper, you never see that. But the ability to trade win rider, you have to tap mana down, but bounce something every turn is kind of nasty. It's kind of okay, especially in back then dollars. It's not so bad, as far as creatures go. Had a lot of fun with this back in the day. Not sure it's as good as it used to be, but I'm still going to give this a 3.9. I think that Witch Hunter, that activated ability is deceptively okay. It really is. Yeah, Witch Hunter's a classic. Yeah, it is. Fuzznuts. Your name's a classic. Amnesia, our first blue card. This is 6 mana, 3 triple blue for a sorcery. Look at target player's hand. Target player discards all non-land cards in his or her hand. So you leave him with just lands, which would be really annoying. All they have is 3 lands left. Even if all you got out of their hand was 2 cards. Still left with nothing but lands. This doesn't, 6 mana is too much for this. For sure, I'll say. Yeah, the art is wild. This is Mark Poole, by the way. Mark Poole is, I guess people would call him a normal old school Magic artist. He doesn't do too much wild stuff, but look at this. Look at this thing. This guy's got a hole in his head. This I will give... It's pretty bad. But how bad is it? I will give this a 2.8. Because I don't think you'll ever actually play this card. But if you hit somebody with 7 cards, you could get 6 cards out of their hands. A 6 for 1, you know what I mean? There are ways this card is good, but I don't think you'll ever be in those situations. You know what I mean? Unless Charlie just drew 40 cards and he's got a Reliquary Tower in play and suddenly it's a 20 for 1 or whatever. I don't think it's going to happen that often. So no thanks for the most part. Apprentice Wizard is a deceptively good Magic card. 3 mana, 1 double blue for a 0/1 human wizard. Pay a blue and tap it to add 3 mana to your mana pool. Okay, it's just used as a mana ability too, so it can't be countered or whatever. Can't be really interacted with. So this is, put it this way, this is a dark ritual that you can cast every turn. A dark ritual on a stick. It's 1 mana for 3 mana. So you can literally cast Dark Ritual every turn of the game. And if you have ways of untapping Apprentice Wizard, you can tap him again, untap him, tap him again, untap him, tap him again. There's a lot of infinite mana combos with this you need to look out for. But apart from just being an infinite mana engine, It's also real ramp in blue. You don't have to just spend it on artifacts. You don't just have to spend it on instants and sorceries. You don't just have to spend it on cards out of your graveyard, blah, blah, blah. It's just like free mana to spend on whatever you want. You know? That's so good. It's still good. Even for 3 mana, this card is still good. I'm going to give Apprentice Wizard a 6. A 6. You should be playing this. You don't have to buy this one, although cool points if you do acquire Apprentice Wizard from the dark, because it looks much better. It is a whole like $5, you know, but you can get it from 4th edition for 15 cents if you wanted that badly. But obviously you want that old school black bordered one. It looks amazing. But still, I think that Apprentice Wizard is like a playable, very playable Magic card. It's just ramp, just blue ramp. Dance of Many is double blue for an enchantment. When Dance of Many comes into play, target choose a creature card in play. Put a token creature into play and treat it as though you have just brought an exact copy of the summoned creature into play. If Dance of Many leaves play, remove the token creature from the game. If the token creature leaves play, destroy Dance of Many. If you do not pay double blue during your upkeep, Dance of Many is destroyed. Now, we don't have a whole lot of these anymore. It used to be much more common to see these like pay X amount of mana during your upkeep, right? For this card. And they would pay less mana up. They would cost less mana up front. And that's kind of what this card's got going on. I like it. The problem is it's a control magic. Okay. So good thing. Good thing. It's a control magic for half the price of control magic. Bad thing. It's a control magic that doesn't steal their creature. Like, the good thing about control magic and other thief effects is that it kind of also removes their creature at the same time that it gives you one. That's a really good effect. Dance of Many is more of a clone. Hits any creature in play, so your guys too. And that can be all right. So I'm not going to take that away from it. Very cheap, but paying 2 mana every single turn to keep the card in play, so eventually you pay 10 mana to have this card, it feels pretty bad. But like in Commander, maybe you've got the mana laying around. I don't know. But still, Dance of Many, a really interesting card. Looks awesome, too. Sandra Everingham kind of ate with this art. It looks amazing to me. But ultimately, I think also reprinted in Chronicles. So if you want a cheap copy, you can get one. But ultimately, I think it's a fine card that's not much better than fine. But, you know, 2 mana clones. Yeah. 2 mana clones. I'm going to give this I'm going to give it a 5. I really am. I think I might be willing to pay the 2 mana every turn. I think I am. Deep Water is 2 mana, double blue for an enchantment. Pay a blue, all mana producing lands you control provide blue instead of their normal mana until end of turn. So that's bad, right? I like seeing sharks. I think sharks on art is cool. But altogether, no, right? The counterplay for Blood Moon. Ooh, yeah, it's in the same set too. Maybe this is what you're supposed to do. Maybe this is what you're supposed to do. Like the whole time we didn't know that Deep Water was the counterplay. Yeah, Sneaky Tentacles in the bottom right. Yeah, good eye there. That's all it. See, that's what a great feature. What a great little bit of personality. Yeah, it doesn't work. You need blue. You got to produce blue mana somehow. Maybe have a rock that produces blue, you know? That could work. But I think this is like a 2, you know? I'm only giving it like some benefit of the doubt. There's something I don't know that you could be doing with it. But, Drowned is up next. This is just a Drudge Skeleton, but it's blue. It costs 1 and a blue for a zombie. So 1/1, you can pay a black and regenerate it. So it's literally Drudge Skeletons, but blue, you still have to pay the black to regenerate. So that's whatever. What do you give Drudge Skeletons? I give Drudge Skeletons a 2.2. Regenerate's a good ability, but not that good. Yeah. Actually, you know what? I will give Drudge Skeletons and thereby Drowned. I will give this a 2.5. Right? Like, I like Regenerate. I do. Electric Eel is really bad. This is a single blue mana for a 1/1 eel. You pay 2 red mana, and eel gets +2/+0 and does 1 damage to you. Electric Eel does 1 damage to you when it is brought into play. So you'll take a damage on turn 1 when you play eel. You're supposed to have played a Volcanic Island on turn 1. Turn 2, power up the eel with your mountain and the Volcanic Island. Get in, but that doesn't, the Volcanic Island play on turn 1 is like the only way you could do that. The only way you could swing 3, but technically back then it gave blue the chance to swing for the most damage of any color on turn 2, which does not make sense, but it's technically true. But in any case, just on one card, you could always Savannah Lions turn 2 Unholy Strength to get in for 4. Like if you could do that. But all for it on one card, you can get in for 3 damage on turn 2. Unheard of. But anyway, really, really bad card. Amazing that it's not restricted to once a turn. If you do have 6 red mana, this gets in for, 2, 4, 7 damage. But you're not going to do it. You're just not going to do it. Bad card, 1.5. Right at it. Don't touch it. Erosion is 3 blue mana for a land. It's an enchant land. Just target land is destroyed, or enchanted land is destroyed unless its controller pays 1 or 1 life during his or her upkeep. Effects that prevent a redirect damage may not be used, counter the loss of life. So, at some point, you got to wonder, why do we even have effects that prevent a redirect damage? If everything is going to have that line of text on it, why do we even have those effects? But anyway, this is terrible. 3 whole blue mana, really difficult to cast. Blue Stone Rain, not really. They just pay a life every turn. They could pay 1 every turn if they wanted to, which is kind of like destroying the land because they just tap down the land it's enchanted to some of the time to pay its own cost. But a lot of the time, they'll just pay 1 life. So it ends up being blue burn more than anything. The longer the game goes on, the better it is. Goes okay with Psychic Venom, which is 2 mana for an R that enchants a land. Whenever the land's tapped, they take 2 damage. So blue was trying to do stuff like this back in the day, and blue burn kind of got cut a long time ago from Prodigal Sorcerer and a lot of creatures like it to Psionic Blast and stuff. Just really didn't make it very far. Blue burn as a concept. One way or the other though, I'll give Erosion like a 2.1 because I don't know, it could be 1 life a turn and maybe you want to try that. Flood is a single blue mana for an enchantment. You can pay 2 blue to tap a non-flying creature. This I like a little more. Very mana intensive. Very, but in your, make sure that they can't attack me deck. You're playing Moat or Teferi's Moat, which is more affordable. You're playing Fog Effect. You're playing Ghost Prison. You're playing Propaganda. You're, all that stuff. You can tap down their best creature or creatures for 2 or 4 mana. And I think in some commander lists, it's still worth it. I really do. So I'm going to give this a 4. I don't think it's a good card necessarily, but I think it's more playable than the last few cards we've looked at. Let me just say that. Next is Ghost Ship Baby, the original, and you're not going to believe me because it's not true. The second popular control finisher. This is 4 mana, 2 and 2 blue for a 2/4 ship with flying. I think it's a spirit nowadays. If you pay 3 blue, it regenerates. So Sarah Angel was technically the first controlled deck creature that was a finisher. It was played in Brian Weissman's The Deck and a few other just blue-white lists or 3-color lists back in the day. The deck is basically 5 colors, but if you're going to finish off the game with a creature, it's usually Sarah. This, however, was the first control finisher that I really encountered as 11-year-old dev. Very annoying card. It turns out the games, especially back then, go long enough to where opponent holds up 6 or 7 mana. They hold up 6 so that they can play counterspell when you try to remove this. If they hold up 7 mana, they don't even have to have a counterspell. You go to remove this and they just regenerate it. And back then we didn't really have a whole lot of can't be regenerated or whatever. We didn't have a whole any exile for the most part. So if you're just going to try to use a normal removal spell on their Ghost Ship, you can't if they have 3 open mana. So they would just fly in on you for 10 turns in a row and kill you. This was an actually fairly common practice back then. The card is not held up over time, for sure. It's on curve with regen, yeah, because you can regenerate it for 3 and still have 2 mana up for removal or counter spells and stuff. So even power sync mana, you counter that unless you pay 1 on 2 mana, and it would work a lot of times back in the day. So Ghost Ship was a control finisher, believe it or not. So just really tough to deal with, really difficult to block. And even if you can block it, it's got 4 toughness, so it may not die, Just cool card, but I can't give this more than a 2.5 in the modern day. It's not good anymore. Giant Shark is 6 mana, 5 and a blue for a 4/4 Shark. If Giant Shark blocks or is blocked by a creature that has taken damage this turn, Giant Shark gains +2/+0 and trample until end of turn. Giant Shark cannot attack unless opponent controls at least one island. Giant Shark is buried immediately if at any time controller controls no islands. So if you don't have any islands, sacrifice it, basically. This is bad. You have to like hit one of their creatures with a Prodigal Sorcerer. In old day parlance, you have to Timmy one of their creatures for 1 damage and then attack with Giant Shark. And if they block Shark with that particular creature, then Shark is a 6/4 that tramples over the creature. It's just like really weird mechanic. I play this card just for the art. Yeah, there was somebody around here, around where I live, that collected Giant Sharks. Last I saw, which was 30 years ago, something 25 years ago. Last I saw, this person had like 200 Giant Sharks that they had been collecting for a couple of years, right? So God knows how many they have now. But yeah, people really like this card, or at least that guy did. But it's pretty bad. Like, come on, card's kind of bad. It's really hard to like actually make this thing work the way it's supposed to. So it's just like a 6 mana 4/4. Some of the time, and at its best it's crawl worm with trample. Like, who cares, you know? So like 1.9 is not even 1.7 is really bad. Leviathan, this is one of the cards that was under the glass at my LGS that kind of made me fall in love with the game. Like, look, he's gonna swallow that lighthouse or whatever, the like underground lighthouse, underwater lighthouse. Like, that's how big he is. Look at the perspective. It's so scary. This card's like, there's something, it's not scary, but like ominous, like something frightening that chills you about the art on this card, the perspective on it. But yeah, this is one of the first like expensive cards that Little Dev bought. I had mowed lawns that summer, and this card was under glass, cost $10. And I bought the Leviathan under glass at Comics Plus, and I was very proud of myself. I like sat like on my bed, like laying on my stomach on my bed, just like looking at this card for like, you know, hours after I bought it. Like, I have this, you know, and it's pretty bad. It is, it is 9 mana, 5 and quadruple blue for a 10/10 Leviathan with trample. Comes into play tapped and does not untap during your untap step. Sacrifice 2 islands during your upkeep to untap Leviathan. Leviathan may not attack unless you sacrifice 2 islands. Wild. So I have to sacrifice a total of 4 islands to attack with this thing. I could twiddle this or untap it in a number of other ways, especially now. I could untap this in a number of ways. I don't have to worry necessarily about sacking 2 islands. But to attack, I have to sack 2 islands. It sucks. But maybe you have Crucible of Worlds or Ice Till Explorer or whatever, you know, there's 1,000 ways to play lands out of your yard to make it not so bad. And then, you know, blue-green landfall, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm sacking lands so that I can play them out of my yard and get more landfall triggers, and I'm swinging with a 10/10. It's 9 mana, guys. It's 9 mana. It's like so bad. I love this card so much. Like, nostalgia-wise, I love this card. It's one of the things that made me fall in love with Magic. And there is a mystique to it to this day. It really is. But I will give this a 2.0. It's so bad. It's so bad. I hate to admit it. Let's look at a good card. Mana Vortex is a hidden gem from the dark you may have never seen in your life. But it is wonderful. This is 3 mana, 1 and double blue for an enchantment. Each player who controls a land, which should be most players, sacrifices 1 land during his or her upkeep. So each player has to sack a land during their upkeep. If at any time there are no lands in play, Mana Vortex is destroyed. If you do not sacrifice a land when Vortex is cast, Mana Vortex is countered. So, well, it's when you cast it, sack a land. Okay, that kind of sucks, but whatever. After it's in play, now it's the best land destruction spell of all time. It destroys a land every turn. Every turn. And speaking of Crucible of Worlds, Ice Till Explorer, whatever, especially Crucible of Worlds, because you can just be in mono blue and play Crucible, right? What a wonderful combo. Like, sure, I'll sack a land and I'll play it again. I'll sack a land and I'll play it again, right? It's just insane. But most people will not have access to such luxuries. So this is another card that's 3 mana to make everyone hate you and target you and make, you know, the first enchantment, the first disenchant that gets drawn is probably used on this. But in the meantime, in the between time, man, it is a crazy card. So good, baby. half broken. Not really. Yeah, smokestack before smokestack. Yeah, that's a good way to kind of put it. This is one of the best commander cards in the set to this day. I'm going to give this like an 8.3. This is one of the better cards we'll see today. It may not always work out practically the way you want it to, but it will definitely have an impact on the table, to say the least. It's also some of my favorite art in the set. It really is. You know, there's a reason that when we opened this video, I was on the art for this card on my desktop because I love it. It's beautiful, simple. The color palette's nice. You know, it's on the beach at night, the moon in the background, mountains, and you're right here on the side. It's gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous art. Schuler always knows what he's doing. But yeah, like 8.3 for Mana Vortex. Yeah, it's only $14, and you could probably get it for cheaper on TCG Player, like heavily played. You probably get this card like $10 right now, seriously, and I think it's worth it. This is a, again, hidden gem from this set. Merfolk Assassin is double blue for a 1/2 Merfolk. Tap to destroy a creature that has Island Walk. I believe that this is only like the 3rd or 4th maybe Merfolk ever printed. Which is interesting because we got Lord of Atlantis in like alpha or beta. I think that is Lord of Atlantis one of the cards that had to wait until beta. There's a couple of them. It's like one of the Circles of Protection. I think Volcanic Island. Maybe it wasn't Lord, but either way, we've had Lord of Atlantis to buff Merfolk the whole time, but this is only like the 3rd or 4th Merfolk they ever printed, which is insane. There is a built-in combo in this set with I think it's called War Barge, and we'll get to that card later. But the card is not very good without that other card. There's not too many cards that have Island Walk, even up to this point, because it kind of started or stopped printing Landwalk cards, you know. But still, I will give Merfolk Assassin like a 2 because it's got that combo potential. And I like that about it. But I can't give it more than that. Mind Bomb is a single blue mana for a sorcery. It used to be really popular. Mind Bomb deals 3 damage to each player. All players may discard up to 3 cards of their choice from their hands. Each player who discards a card in this manner prevents 1 damage to that player from Mind Bomb. So worded really weird, but basically it does 3 damage to everybody. Discard a card to prevent a damage. Do that as many times as you need to. So usually the way this works in Commander is it's just Bolt Wave. This is just a blue Bolt Wave in Commander. And Bolt Wave is playable in Commander. This hits you too, you know, just throw that out there. However, you might want to discard cards, right? Like you might have Reanimation, Madness, Mayhem now, Flashback, well, blah, blah, blah. You might have any number of reasons to want to discard cards. Maybe you got, you know, Underworld Breach or whatever in your deck, and you're just going to play them again later. So you might, rather than take damage, want to discard cards. And that's kind of cool. You'll even catch some people who are like, well, I don't want to take damage. I'm going to discard a card or two, you know, and that could be good for you too. But for the most part, it's going to act like a Bolt Wave. And that's not terrible. I'll give Mind Bomb a 5.3 in Commander. It's not great. I'm not going to pretend it's great, but I like Bolt Wave. I really do. Psychic Allergy is 5 mana, 3 and double blue for an enchantment. Choose a color when casting Psychic Allergy. During opponent's upkeep, Psychic Allergy does 1 damage to opponent for each card of this color that he or she controls. Sacrifice 2 islands during your upkeep or Psychic Allergy is destroyed. What's the Oracle text on this? Each opponent. Okay, I just wanted to make sure. So, what is the actual Oracle text? At the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, this enchantment deals X damage to that player. X is the number of non-token permanents of the chosen color they control. At the beginning of its upkeep, destroys, and so you have to sack 2 islands every turn this is in play, which is not amazing. This is reserve list. It will cost you $4.50 for a very unique effect. Very unique effect. This enchantment deals X damage to a player for each non-token permanent of the chosen color that they control once per turn. So it's actually neat. I am not super familiar with this card, even though I love the dark. I have seen the card before. I always kind of forget what it does. This is kind of neat. You play, let's say you name, you know, blue, white. Let's say you name white. It's 2 players at the table might be playing white. I don't know. This is going to do, you know, 4 or 5 damage to one player and maybe 2 or 3 damage to another that's on a 2-color deck. Is that good enough to be sacking 2 islands every turn? Again, maybe if you have Crucible or Ice Till or like something like that that allows you to play lands out of your yard, you know, the same kind of tricks you can do with Glacial Chasm, right? Because you're always like sacking Glacial Chasm and then replaying it. Like those same tricks could apply to a card like this and not be too bad. But 5 mana is kind of a lot. I think it's actually a bit of a trap. It probably doesn't affect anywhere between 1.5 to 2 or 3 players at the table. So I don't know, man. I'm going to give this a 3.5 though. I am. You know, yeah, it does at least 1 round of damage. You can just sack it. Yeah, like maybe it does 7 damage once and you just get rid of it. You know, you don't even have to sack islands. It could be cute, but I don't know, man. I feel a trap coming on, you know. Riptide is a single blue mana for an instant. All blue creatures become tapped. Yeah, you know. Psychic Algae can be powerful, but it usually only hits for 2 damage and a 1v1 per turn. Yeah, that's the thing. Is like 1v1s especially, people are going to have like 4 or 5 permanents of the chosen color. And that's it. I hate that it's non-token specifically. It does say for each card of the color you chose. So that implies non-token, I guess. But I wish it wasn't non-token. The card would be much better against, you know, certain white decks play a bunch of tokens, black decks play a bunch of tokens. So could work. Tauren decks in blue. But still, Riptide is bad. We already said all blue creatures become tapped for a blue mana. It's not great. 2.1. I'll give it a 2.1. I will. I can see places you'd use it. Sunken City is double blue for an enchantment. All blue creatures in play gain +1/+1, but you got to pay 2 blue during your upkeep to keep Sunken City around. So another one of these that has an upkeep cost. So eventually it will cost you a total of 10 mana, you know, to have this card in play. I do still think it's good. I think the way you usually play this is you play, you know, blue creature on turns 1, 2, 3, and then on turn 4 you play your Sunken City. And, you know, get in with the Anthem effect that turn. You know, it has an effect on the board the turn you play it. And subsequent turns, you can pay your 2 blue mana and still have at least 2 blue mana up for counter spells or other creatures, especially flash creatures or, you know, bounce, whatever it is. So I think this is supposed to come down turn 4, 5, whatever. And not actually be too bad. I mean, you're like Merfolk deck or whatever. I could still see playing this in Commander. I really could. Blue doesn't have a ton of Anthem effects, especially ones that, you know, aren't creature specific. This is just blue creatures, which I think is neat. And it probably won't affect, unless again your opponent's specifically playing Tauren, Locust God, something like that. Then this isn't going to affect too many other creatures at the table. You know, maybe a couple, but not too many. So I think it's pretty cool. I'm going to give this a, I'm going to give this a 5.6. Seriously. Yeah, it's Crusade and Bad Moon, but worse. But I would give those cards high marks. Like Bad Moon probably gets like a 6. And this is just Bad Moon you have to pay for. You know, so I think it's kind of fine. I think it's all right. Tangle Kelp is a single blue mana enchant creature. Target creature does not untap during its controller's untap phase. If it attacked during its controller's last turn, target creature becomes tapped when Tangle Kelp is cast. So it's nice that it taps the creature down. So you can get in for combat damage that turn. That's okay. It also works on vigilant creatures. Like if a Sarah Angel attacked you last turn, you tap it down and it doesn't untap next turn. That's cute. So fun tech against like specifically vigilant guys, but altogether pretty bad removal, but only 1 blue mana. You know, I'll give this card a 2.6. Water Worm is the final blue card of the set. A blue mana for a worm. 1/1 that gets +0/+1 if an opponent controls at least 1 island. Kind of a riff on Curd Ape, but terrible. It's a 1 mana 1/1 with a completely irrelevant creature type. Let's see what its creature type is nowadays. Is it still a worm? Yep, it's just a worm. Completely irrelevant creature type. 1 mana 1/1. That's all you get unless maybe someone has an island. And then it's a 1/2. Terrible. Just terrible. I'll give this a 1/2 as well. 1.2. Our first black card. Let me take a sip real quick. Yeah. It's a 1 mana 2/3 with Sunken City. That's true. Shane is correct. Not bad. Ashes to Ashes is a good card, man. And our first black card of the set. You would think the black cards would be good in this set, and they are. 3 mana, 1 in double black for a sorcery. Ashes to Ashes removes 2 target non-artifact creatures from the game and does 5 damage to you. So you take 5. But you also exile 2 creatures. Non-artifact creatures, whatever. Exile a 2 for 1. You just pay 5 life. That's worth it in Commander, right? That's pretty good. Doesn't it require 2 creatures in play or it fizzles? Yes. In fact, it does. Same thing with Dust to Dust up there. It has to have 2 targets. Which is kind of an old, like an ancient little rules thing, you know, like an Easter egg in the rules. But yeah, it has to have 2 targets, but it shouldn't be too tough, you know. I guess your opponent can, while it's on the stack, get rid of one of the targets and the spell fizzles. But interestingly, they may not be incentivized to do that. Because in Commander, you're blowing up this guy's creature and this lady's creature. You know what I mean? So why would I blow up my own creature? You know, unless I wanted to specifically send my guy to the graveyard instead. But you know, if I'm Melissa, why would I blow up my own creature just so Bobby's creature can live? Who cares? You know, if my guy's going, then Bobby's guy's going too. So in any case, I think just a 2-for-1 is playable. I really do. Especially at Exile. It's Exile. I'm going to give this a 6. Seriously. I will give this a 6. Banshee is 4 mana. This card's better than it looks. This is reprinted in Chronicles, and I think a lot of people got the idea that it's terrible, but actually, really get down to it. It ain't bad. 4 mana, 2 and double black for a 0/1 Banshee. If you pay X and tap it, Banshee does X damage, half of it rounded up to you, and half of it rounded down to any one target. So, you'll never pay an odd number of mana for this, because why do that? If you pay, say, 6 mana for this, it does 3 to you and 3 to anything. It could be a planeswalker, a creature, a player, it could even be a boat. It does not matter which target. There's not a whole lot of black creatures that do that just deal damage to a creature. Is it a common? Is it a common? Let's find out together. It is an uncommon that will cost you $1 from the dark right now, which I think is not a terrible deal, to be honest. So I think that, especially in Commander, where you can have all the mana in the world, you know, let's say I have 10 mana. 5 to me, 5 to you. 5 to me, 5 to your guy. That's worth it. Like, some of the time, that is absolutely worth it. Especially if you have all the mana. If I have 20 mana, 10 to you, 10 to me, sure. Especially in black, where, you know, I was thinking about this in Moreland. You know, Moreland just came out in Spider-Man, and it's kind of a drain life on legs that can sit in your command zone. And not just Moreland, but Cat Gator when it comes out, and Corrupt, and Tendrils of Agony, and so Drain Life itself, Consume Spirit. So many of these cards in black gain you life. So you might have a relatively high life total to work with. And so you don't care that it does damage to you. You don't care, you know? So I kind of think this is all right. It costs a lot of mana. You know, 4 mana is a lot for 0/1, but I actually think this is really neat. Like, if I'm building like a mono black burn deck in Commander, I might play this card. Seriously, just for the lulz. So I'm going to give this, like, and I'm serious, don't hit me, I'm going to give this like a 5.1. Because, like, it hits any target too. I really need to stress that. This can take out creatures, and like, okay, 2 to me, 2 to that guy. For 4 mana, it's a lot, but it's instant speed. You do the ability at instant speed. That's pretty good. So I don't know, dude. Yeah, need to be at half for Cecil anyway. Yeah, like, think about that. Like, there's black decks that want to deal damage to themselves. So, like, this is pretty good in that, too. I don't know, dude. I kind of like it. Bog Imp is bad. It's 2 mana, 1 in the black for a 1/1 flyer. That's what this card does. I will give this a 1.5 because it flies. Bog Rats is 1 black mana for a 1/1 rat that can't be blocked by walls. It's worse than flying for the most part. 1.3. It's really not good. Curse Artifact is a neat card. One of the first black cards that could do anything about artifacts. 4 mana, and to this day, one of the only ones. 2 and double black for Enchant Artifact. During his or her upkeep, controller of the artifact may choose to bury the enchanted artifact. If controller does not sacrifice the artifact, it's probably what this says nowadays, Cursed Artifact does 2 damage to him or her. So I put this on your Arcane Signet. And now you have a choice. So you can sack the Arcane Signet during your upkeep, or you can take 2 damage. I think most players are going to take 2 damage for a few turns until it becomes untenable. But in Commander, it'll take a very long time for it to become untenable. You know, and the art is sick. Yes, it is. Mark Teeden, He's good for good art. But this has like a little place in Magic history. It really does. So, but it's not great. I wouldn't really recommend putting this into your commander deck because again, most of the time they'll just take the 2 and you spent 4 mana for this and whatever. So I'm just gonna give this a 3.4. But despite the low score, I do think that it's neat. It's neat. You know, again, not too many black cards do anything about artifacts ever. So, yeah, Mark Teagan, greater than most. Yeah, in a lot of ways. Eater of the Dead. This is really neat, actually. So this is 5 mana, 4 and a black for a 3/4. Summon Eater. Sure. What is this, a demon? What are you nowadays? Horror. It is a horror nowadays. So get a load of this text box, if you will, ladies and gentlemen. For 0 mana, the activated ability is 0. Take 1 creature from any graveyard, remove it from the game, and untap Eater of the Dead. So basically, for no mana, exile a creature from any graveyard and untap this guy. Holy crap. So first of all, Agatha's Soul Cauldron setups where you can just give him a tap ability work super duper well. If you've never seen this card, we're about to turn you on, son. You need to order a copy of Eater. So if you've got Agatha's Soul Cauldron or anything that otherwise lets you like ape activated abilities, you can put activated abilities on this guy and then just untap him a bunch of times because there are creatures in graveyards. If they're not in yours, they're in somebody's. So if you have an ability that allows him to tap for mana, let's say you have a Cryptolithrite, let's say you have an Enduring Vitality, both of those green cards, those allow your creatures to tap for mana. So just tap Eater of the Dead for mana, untap him by exiling a creature, tap him for mana, untap him for mana, untap him for mana, untap. You see what I'm getting at? There are various auras that allow a creature to, you know, get a tap ability. There are artifacts that can bestow tap abilities onto creatures. So this guy goes hog wild. Yeah, Paradise Mantle gets well worn on it. Yeah, Paradise Mantle allows the creature to tap for mana. So yeah, that's another great little combo right there. There's a lot of combos with Eater of the Dead that don't lead to infinite mana, but they certainly lead to enough mana. Like every single time. This is $5. You can also get the Mystery Booster version of it. Mystery Booster 2, relatively new version, for like $1. But I think that if it's $5.25 on Scryfall, that probably means you can get a heavily played copy on TCG Player for like $2 or $3. And that is hella worth it in the modern day with all of these like crazy combos, because even though we just named like 4 or 5, those are not even close to all the Eater of the Dead combos. Just, if you've never seen this card before, it's great. I'm going to give this a 6.9. Very nice card, in fact. Very nice card. Frankenstein's Monster is a weird card. This is 2 black mana and X for a 0/1 monster. When Frankenstein's Monster is brought into play, if you do not take X creatures from your graveyard and remove them from the game, Frankenstein's Monster is countered. So okay, so you paid X mana. Keep in mind that X is in the cost. So let's say I pay 3 mana. All right, so I'm paying 5 total mana for this. X equals 3. I have to remove 3 creatures in my graveyard from the game when I play this. For each creature removed from your graveyard this way, you may choose to give Frankenstein's Monster a +2/+0 counter, a +1/+1 counter, or a +0/+2 counter. So, again, in this example, I've paid 5 total mana. I have removed 3 creatures from my graveyard. And now I can make a 6/1 Frankenstein's Monster for my 5 mana. Pretty bad. I think we can all agree simplifying to +1/+1 counters was a good decision. Yep. This card used to confuse people, but it's actually fairly straightforward when you think about it. But the more mana you pay, the better / worse it gets. You know, like, if I pay 3 mana for this, I get a 2/1. That's terrible. If I pay, 6 mana for this, I get an 8/1, which is better, but still pretty bad. Still pretty bad. So there's not a whole lot of chances for this card to truly be good. I will give this a 2.3, mostly because I like its style. That's about it. Yeah, I do like the modality. You can make a creature with huge toughness if that's what you need at the time. It's kind of cool. Next is Grave Robbers, 3 mana, 1 and double black for a 1/1 robber. I believe it's a human nowadays. Pay a black and tap it. Take 1 artifact from any graveyard, remove it from the game. Exile an artifact from a graveyard and gain 2 life. So Altogether, not great. I guess there's some tech purposes for this, but altogether, I don't love it. It's tempting, I guess, in like black-white life gain, I guess, but you've got so many better ways to use your limited slots in a deck like that. So I will just give this like a 3 and keep it pushing. Inquisition is neat. That's always been hard to say. Inquisition is 3 mana, 2 and a black for a sorcery. Look at target player's hand. Inquisition does 1 damage to target player for each white card in his or her hands. You target the player that's on white at the table. And if they have a full hand, they probably take like 4. That's 4 or 5, you know what I mean? Like, it's pretty not good. It's just not. I guess in black burn, maybe if you're hard up for slots, but it's still bad. This is trappy. I will give this a 2.2. It doesn't actually make them discard any of the cards. Like, the best part about it is that it gives you the information. So if it's Lava Axe for 3 mana, I guess that's fine. I'll give it a 2.4. Sure. I'll move it up like 0.2 slots. It ain't good. Marsh Gas is a single black mana for an instant. All creatures get -2, -0 till end of turn. Instant speed. So, you know, usually I'd say you can block up, cast it, maybe nerf their dudes or whatever, but it hits your guys too. So that's kind of weird. A half of a fog effect, you know, not quite fog, but it feels like a fog. It feels like a blue effect, doesn't it? It just feels blue. But it's not great. I'm going to give this a 2.6. I could see casting this on occasion. I really could. If you're hard up for fog effects in black, then maybe, but no. Murk Dwellers is bad. This is 4 mana, 3 and a black for a 2/2 Murk Dwellers. When attacking, Murk Dwellers gets +2/+0 if it's not blocked. So I get a 4 mana 4/2 if it's not blocked. It's still not good, even by, you know, not even close. I'm going to give this a 1.7. Okay. Next is Nameless Race. This is a confusing card. And it also looks like that guy from Avatar. Chat, help me out. His name starts with a K, I think. The guy from Avatar. Who's this look like? It's the guy from Avatar. Who's it look like? This is 4 mana, 3. Zuko. Yeah, it does. This looks just like Zuko. Yep, everyone in chat knows. It definitely looks like Zuko. If you don't know Zuko, look him up on Google. It's the same guy. But this came out, the Dark came out like years before Avatar, so that's, yeah, it says Nameless Race, but it's actually Zuko. 4 mana, 3 and a black for Summon Nameless Race. This is a star with trample. Pay star life when bringing Nameless Race into play. Effects that prevent or redirect damage may not be used, counter loss of life. When Nameless Race is brought into play, star may not be greater than the total number of white cards all opponents have in play and in their graveyards. So another like white hoser here. Let's say you got 2 players on white sitting at the table. Between them, they have a total of 8 white permanents. And in their graveyards, they have a total of 5 white permanents. Right? You could switch that if you wanted to. But that means that this could be a 13/13 trample for 4 mana. The problem is you have to pay 13 life. You have to pay 13 life. Now, it does, the way this is worded, it says the star may not be greater than the total number of white cards and blah, blah, blah. So you don't have to take all as much damage as you must take, right? If there's a total of 30 white cards on the table or in graveyards, you don't have to take 30. You can take 5 if you want to. You can choose a lesser number. But altogether, I don't think a 10/10 trample is worth paying 10 life when it comes into play, but it is a kind of a really neat idea for a card, but I'm not going to give it more than like a 3, and I'm giving it a 3 because it has the potential to be big. You know, like there's a chance. But I'll move on to Ragman, one of my favorite cards, man, from this set. Just in terms of aesthetics, you know, it's just so intimidating. Ragman is 4 mana, 2 double black for Summon Ragman. 2/1. Pay 3 black mana and tap it to look at opponent's hand. If opponent has any creature cards in it, he or she discards one of them at random. This ability can only be used during controller's turn. So probably activated sorcery speed nowadays if I had to guess. But 3 mana is a lot for a tap ability. I'll say that much. But still, you're guaranteed to get a creature. You look at their entire hand, and it's a pseudo-random discard. If they have 3 creatures in their hand, they cannot choose the worst one. They have a chance at losing the best one. So all that I'm kind of into. I still like Ragman kind of mechanically, but, thematically, look at this. Look at this, almost like Jack the Ripper era, dark London sort of street with this guy covered in rags. You can't see his face. He's got these claws. He's just a silly, dirty little man. What's to be afraid of? What a great card. We're coming up on another card that I feel like, has these same vibes, achieves the same aesthetic that they're looking for in the dark, that is probably slightly better, but I'll still give Ragman a 3.6. Seriously. I like this. Season of the Witch is a crazy Magic card. Really, really crazy. Yeah, don't look at the art for the Fallen too long. It'll get in your heart. Season of the Witch is great. It's actually good to hit a good card here. 3 black mana for an enchantment. At the end of each player's turn, all of his or her untapped creatures that could have attacked but did not attack are destroyed. If you do not pay 2 life during your upkeep, Season of the Witch is destroyed. Effects that prevent a redirect damage, blah, blah, blah. You can't prevent a redirect. So pay 2 life during your upkeep or sacrifice Season of the Witch. We got that. At the end of each player's turn, if they didn't attack with a thing they could have attacked with, that thing is popped. That's nasty. That's nasty. That basically means that all of their non-summoning sick creatures have to attack or they die. That's crazy. Combos with Festival from earlier, I'm not sure that it does because they couldn't attack. Right? All their untapped creatures that could have attacked but did not are destroyed, but they couldn't. So does it combo with Festival? If it does, that's sick. It's actually gross, but people always want to leave behind some creatures to block or just for other reasons. I've got this guy that's awesome. He's got this sweet passive ability on him, but he's a 2/2, so I can't attack with him, like Talrund or Archmage Emeritus or something like that, Beast Whisperer. But this forces those attacks, and that's nasty. It's really nasty. If they don't attack, they die anyway, so just really good card here. And I think that it is, for what it is, it's on the reserve list. I believe it's a rare. I might be wrong on that. But for what it is and for how crazy this effect is, I think this card is relatively affordable. Rare, part of the reserve list, only ever printed in dark, $23. That means that on TCG Player, you could probably get this card for like $15 right now. I bet you could. Like 20, something like that, That is a heck of a deal for what this card does. I think this card's really good. I'm going to give Season of the Witch an 8. I'm going to give it an 8. Are all reserve list cards rare? Is that right? Huh. I felt like there were some uncommons that weren't, or that were on the reserve list. Maybe I'm wrong. Probably am. But yeah, Season I'm going to cap at 8. I think it could be higher than 8, but this I promise you this card is crazy. And look at that. Look at that art. Look at that art. It's so nice. The Fallen is 4 mana, 1 and triple black for a 2/3 summon Fallen. What are you? What are these creatures? Zombie. It's a zombie nowadays. I thought so. I just wanted to make sure. But this zombie is 4 mana, 1 and triple black for a 2/3. During its controller's upkeep, the Fallen does 1 damage to each opponent it has previously damaged. So if you get in on a guy or a lady, for that matter, or a non-binary person, then they get like an emblem that deals 1 damage to them for as long as you continue to control the Fallen. That is neat. It's really neat design that is still not really worth, a dry fart in a windstorm. So I'm going to give this a 2.4, something like that. Uncle Isvan, Unk baby. Unk is, he's actually okay, but this is one of my favorite cards in Magic. Not even just from this set. I love Uncle Isvan, baby. This is 4 mana, 1 and triple black for a 1/3. All damage done to Unk is, by creatures at least, is reduced to 0. So this guy blocks everything, and you reduce the damage to 0. Blocks anything you want him to forever. That's great, Or you can maybe make his power larger, get in for a bunch of damage, and if he does get blocked, he won't take damage. But mostly Unk blocks and looks amazing. This is an old man who lives in the woods and wears a dirty fur coat. He's got bones hanging from his axe. He's got a bloody axe. This dude is awesome. This dude is the aesthetic. You know what I mean? I'm going to give Unc an honorary 5. I'm going to do it. Yeah, this is supposed to be the slasher movie trope. I was hoping that this would get a reprint. You know, like somehow Uncle Isvan in Duskmorn or something. You know, I was hoping that Uncle Isvan would like find his way through the Omen paths or something like that. Through the pathways and find himself in Duskmorn somewhere. Like we get a legendary version of Uncle Isvan. Please do that, Wizards. Please do that. That would be sick. But anyway, Unc, I will give the honorary 5 to. If I get 1 in this video, it should be this. I love Unc, dude. I do. Next is Word of Binding. So X and double black for sorcery. To tap X creatures. That's it. That's all it does is tap some creatures down. This was used in early, black aggro decks. So tap your opponent's creatures down, get in 1 attack, and win the game. So this has seen play. There is a point where this saw play. Bad now. Just bad. I have to give this I give it a 3. Worms of the Earth, a trap card right here. So, but you're not going to activate it. It's not Yu-Gi-Oh! 5 mana, 2 and triple black for an enchantment. No new land may be brought into play. At all. That's interesting. During any player's upkeep, any player may destroy Worms of the Earth by sacking 2 lands or, and this is the part that makes the card suck, by taking 5 damage from Worms of the Earth. So all they have to do is pay 5 life. And you get rid of Worms. Now, if you have a way of bringing this back from your graveyard over and over and continuing to force people with this decision, then like maybe the card gets better. But then it kind of sounds like you're basing your entire commander deck around Worms of the Earth. And is that actually good? I don't think so. I really don't. So again, I think this card's kind of a trap. If it was sack 2 lands and that's how you could get rid of it, I could stomach that. But all they have to do is take a lava axe to the face. I think most people would be happy to do that most of the time. So, boo. Yeah, if you had to do both, that would be I would love that, but no. So I am going to give Worms a 3. I think that there's like maybe a way to use this, but The effect now says destroy this enchantment. Doesn't indestructible prevent it from being destroyed? Well, Oracle text. At the beginning of each upkeep, any player may sack 2 lands of their choice to have this enchantment deal 5 damage to that player. If a player does either destroy this enchantment. Destroy this enchantment. Yeah. Huh. So if you were somehow able to give it indestructible, then yes, that's another fun trick. That's another fun trick right there. I'll still throw it a 3, which is better than I want to give it. I want to give this a 2. I'm going to give it a whole point for uniqueness, mostly. We are in red, everybody. We get Ball Lightning. Iconic, not really commander playable card from the set. So this is another one that deserves honorary 5. But if we're rating it for casual commander and we're being honest about the card, I'm going to give this like a 2.9. It's not great, man. You're probably never going to play this in commander, Isn't Ball Lightning in standard? It is. It is right now. No one plays it. Although I think there's an argument for it. People play Screaming Nemesis, probably the better card. People play Tersa Light Shatter. It's debatable. Depends on what your deck is doing, And there's a couple of 3-drops that you'll see from time to time. But I think Ball Lightning is eligible. You know what I mean? Like I think you could make an argument for it in standard. I really do. But anyway, because it's in Foundations, so it's going to be standard legal for like 5 years. But anyway, got dry lips. But anyway, Ball Lightning is another one of those cards though that was under glass at Comics Plus. My friend Ryan got a copy of this card when we were all still young, and we were all like, they were all like jealous that Ryan had a Ball Lightning. From the Dark specifically. Anybody get a Ball Lightning 4th edition. That's easy. Getting a Ball Lightning from the Dark, that was tough. This card was like $25 growing up. And that represented quite the investment. Still does. I don't really spend $25 on one Magic card nowadays. I almost never, ever, ever do that, So Ball Lightning, will always have a special place. This was the red aggro card for a long time. And yeah, again, just one of the more sort of iconic and powerful cards back in the day from the set. But not as iconic or powerful as the next one, baby. This is Blood Moon. Is this the best card in the dark? 3 mana, 2 and a red for an enchantment. All non-basic lands are now basic mountains, baby. That means they only tap for red mana and they don't do a dang nothing else. They don't have any printed abilities on them or nothing. A scourge in Modern for a very long time. Blood Moon. How much is it today? How much is Ball Lightning today? It's less than $25. I can bet you that. It's less than it used to be. The Dark. $40. Wow. No, $40 brand new. You probably get a copy on TCG Player for like $25, $30 if I had to guess. But $40 is more than I expected. I have to say. As far as Blood Moon, how much is a copy of Blood Moon from the Dark? Now, this has been reprinted in Chronicles and a couple of other things. The 9th edition, whatever. But yeah, this is about $70. $70. And you are banned in Historic, but still legal in Modern for some unknown reason. Blood Moon, I didn't actually say what Ball Lightning did I? It's 3 red mana for a 6/1 trample, sack it at end of turn. That's it. Blood Moon, it's also got haste. But Blood Moon is 3 mana. Everything's a mountain that's non-basic. Maybe the most hated Magic card of all time. Right? Is this potentially the most hated Magic card of all time? Could be. How do you solve a problem like Maria? Blood Moon, I will give... Jeez Louise. Blood Moon, I'm going to slap a 9 on. A 9er. You know? Yeah, that goes to Stasis. Ooh. You know, Stasis, maybe Winter Orb. I think that those are hated, but I think you could make an argument that Blood Moon is more hated. I think you could, because, you know, it's more of a scourge in competitive environments than Stasis really was. Stasis was an early banger before a lot of organized play. There was a Stasis deck that was winning tournaments. Don't get me wrong. There was like a Type 1 Stasis deck, but for the most part, Stasis faded into obscurity as a playable deck. In, you know, a fraction of the time that it took Blood Moon to kind of fall back. Blood Moon was a scourge for decades, you know? So, yeah, I love Stasis. Deck was wild. Stasis is... We'll get to Stasis one of these days. Cards like Stasis and Blood Moon and whatnot are real, like, I'm a jerk kind of Magic cards. But you can't deny that they're really powerful and fun to be on the not receiving end of, you know what I'm saying? So, Stasis still top 8's pre-modern? I bet it does, actually. Pre-modern seems like the kind of place for Stasis. It really does. But Blood Moon, I'll give it 9 too, for sure. Bros of Fire, Mario and Luigi, we used to call them. This is 3 mana, 1 and 2 red for a 2/2 human. You can pay 1 and double red again to have Brothers of Fire deal 1 damage to any target and 1 damage to you. This was an almost playable Magic card in like mono red aggro back in the day. It was not uncommon to see 4 of Brothers of Fire. Because once you have 6 mana, you can just shock them, or you can take, you know, you can kill that guy that's an X2 and then get in with more creatures. It doesn't tap to use its ability. That's kind of important. If a 3 toughness creature blocks it, you know, then like it can absorb that hit and also deal a damage to the creature that's blocking it and kill it. So Brothers was a more played card back then, but it's just not good now. I have to give this like a I'll give it like a 2.6. I still like that it can do what it can do, right? Cave People is 3 mana, 1 and double red for Summon Cave People. This is a 1/4. If declared as an attacker, Cave People gets +1/-2 till end of turn. But you can also pay, and this is the cool part, 1 and double red and tap it to have a creature gain Mountain Walk until end of turn. So that is actually not terrible if anyone else at the table is playing mountains. Basically, these land walk abilities, if you're unfamiliar, mean that, let's say an opponent controls a mountain. Well, now the creature with Mountain Walk is unblockable when it attacks that player, right? If you have an island and my guy has Island Walk, you can't block the guy with Island Walk. So pretty intuitive ability. They stopped printing it. I think it was an awesome ability they should bring back, to be honest with you. It kind of makes sense flavorfully and whatnot. But being able to just give a creature Mountain Walk and therefore unblockability on a stick is not terrible. It seriously isn't. So I'm going to give this Yeah, especially for red decks, like in mono red matchups back in the day, mirror matches. This was all right. Kind of broke things. I'm gonna give cave people a straight up 3.85. Like I really think that unblockability on a stick is we're getting close to playable. Matter of fact, 4. We'll give it a 4. I think it's close. Eternal Flame is 4 mana, 2 and double red for a sorcery. Flame does an amount of damage to your opponent equal to the number of mountains you control, but it also does half that amount of damage to you, rounding up. So this was a finisher in mono red decks back in the day. And remained a finisher for a lot longer than a lot of other old school cards like hung on, it's like lightning bolt, chain lightning, those held on forever. There's another red card that we'll get to relatively soon that was actually in red burn decks, and you're not going to believe it when we see it, but I promise you it was. Eternal Flame was the top end finisher for those decks because often it would do, 4, 5, 6 damage to an opponent, and you do not care if it does 2, 3, 4 damage or whatever to you at all. So Eternal Flame is still neat. If you're in Commander, you can deal, 8, 9 damage some of the time to an opponent. And then, 4 or 5 damage to you. And you might be able to stomach that. So really cool art too. And I don't think the card is great for the most part, but I do like it. I'm going to give this a 4.3, and I'm going to give it a score that relatively high to some of the other cards in this set, because I think there's a cool factor to this, that if you do whip it out and like finish someone's night with it, you know what I mean? Like, Tabitha's at 10 and you have 11 mountains and you're like, all right, Tabby, have a good night. Like, everyone's going to be like, oh, what even is that? You know what I mean? Like, I think that you could have a lot of fun playing this one. But Fire Drake is up next. 3 mana, 1 and 2 red for a 1/2 Drake with flying. Pay a red, it gets +1/+0 till end of turn. You can only do that once a turn. So you have to pay for your Wind Drake. Right? It's a 3 mana 2/2, but you have to pay the mana to make it. That's terrible. This is like a 1.9, right? Fissure. Another card that you would not think would be playable, but was back in the day. 5 mana, 3 double red for an instant. Target land or creature is buried. So first thing you want to point out about this card is that it's an instant speed stone rain effect. Most land destruction, Ponzi, whatever you want to call them, Ponza, right? LD cards are not instant speed. They're all sorcery speed. So that's worth noting. But also, red, to this day, doesn't have a whole lot of cards that are just like destroy target creature. They don't usually have that. Again, even now, it's really difficult for red. Yeah, somebody in chat like, what? Red's not supposed to be able to just destroy target creature, especially at instant speed. And this card allows them to do both of those things. And so Fissure did see a fair amount of play back in the day. It really did. And I still think Fissure is maybe not a playable card, but another one that, like, if you're hard up and maybe you want something a little flashier than Chaos Warp or something, then maybe throw it in your Commander deck. I don't think it's that bad. 3.8. Right at. Seriously. Goblin Caves is actually... Peep this card, y'all. 3 mana, 1 and double red for an aura that enchants a land. If enchanted land is a basic mountain, all goblins get +0/+2. All right. Usually you want an actual anthem that increases the power of your goblins, but 3 mana for a +0/+2 anthem. I'm kind of into it. I'm going to give this a 4.8. Seriously, doesn't help you do more damage, but it keeps your goblins around longer. It's kind of cool. But next is Goblin Digging Team, if you wanted some goblins. This is a single red mana for a 1/1 goblin. You can tap it and sack it to destroy a wall. That's it. That's what the card does. It's not good. Tap to destroy a wall could be cute, but it's certainly no Dwarven Demolition Team. I'm going to give this like a 1.2. No, let's give it a 1.8 because there might be a really good wall somewhere. It could be. Goblin Hero is up next. This is 3 mana, 2 and a red for a 2/2 goblin. That's it. It's like a gray ogre. It's like a Scathe Zombies. These cards get 1. A 3 mana 2/2 with no other abilities, that gets a 1 all day. Goblin Rock Sled. This is what you have to do to get a 2 mana 3/1 back in the day. This is 1 in a red for a 3/1 summon rock sled. It's summon goblin nowadays. It has trample, and it may not attack unless opponent controls at least one mountain. Rock sled does not untap as normal during your untap phase if it attacked during your last turn. So look how much you're paying for a 2-mana 3/1 trample. Can't even attack unless you're in the mirror. Right? And then even if it can attack, it only gets to attack once every other turn. So just ridiculous. And yes, there was an argument back in the day. There was a massive argument back in the day as to whether this was a goblin. And it is. Nowadays it is a goblin because it just makes sense. But I think Wizards trusted you to be like, look, it's definitely a goblin. It counts as a goblin. But this is one of the reasons that we have such strict wording in Oracle text, is because they expected us to just know this was a goblin. But it doesn't say it's a goblin, does it? It doesn't actually say that in the type line. Led to many arguments. Goblin Shrine is up next. This is an even bangier banger than the one I showed you a second ago. 3 mana, 1 and double red for enchant land. If target or enchanted land is a basic mountain, there's that line of text. All goblins get +1/+0. Goblin Shrine then does 1 damage to all goblins if it leaves play. Oh no, so you don't want all your X1 goblins to die, right? Maybe that's what the toughness booster is for. But, you just play 2 toughness goblins, or maybe you play anthem effects, right? If I have a Runveld Horde Master or a goblin, whatever it is, Goblin King, then even if all my goblins take 1 damage, they won't die if Goblin Shrine leaves play. And Goblin Shrine probably won't leave play because it's really tough to remove enchantments. It's even tougher to remove lands, right? So fairly safe anthem effect here that just gives all your goblins +1/+0. Dope. Like, this one does give you the +1/+0 bonus. I love it. I'm going to give this card a 5. I'm a little hard up for anthem effects. And maybe this is suffering from a little bit of, I'm being generous because not every card in this set is great. But ultimately, yeah, I think that an anthem effect is good. Goblins of the Flarg is a single red mana for a 1/1 Mountain Walk goblin that is buried if at any time you control any dwarves. So just don't put dwarves in your deck. Don't do it. The art on Goblin Shrine is cool. But Goblins of the Flarg was played in mono red, aggro, mono red goblins, along with Mon's Goblin Raiders. We just didn't have a whole lot of 1-drop gobos back in the day. So you just had to make do with what you had. And again, in the mirror match, Mountain Walk, good. So this card was played, but I can't give it more than a 2. And I'm giving it a 2 because it has Mountain Walk, right? Next is Goblin Wizard, the most expensive card in the set, if I'm not mistaken. Even more expensive than Blood Moon, I believe. Yeah, $80. Remember, Blood Moon was like $70, so $68. This currently costs $78. Why, I'm not sure, but I don't know. Once you read the text on the card, it's fairly self-explanatory. So let's do that. This is 4 mana, 2 and 2 red for a 1/1 goblin. Tap. Take a goblin from your hand, put it directly into play. Treat it as though it were just summoned. For a red mana, a goblin gains protection from white until end of turn, which is not a bad ability either. You get your whole team through, white defenses, I guess, like a white weenie deck or something. If your commander opponent's playing a bunch of white tokens or something, protection from white's pretty good on your goblins, But really, it's the Elvish Piper but for goblins thing, I think, is what people like about this. It's not bad, but there's not a whole lot of goblins that you really get a ton of, value out of. Muxus, somebody said Muxus. That's not bad, but Krinko, just throw him into play, I guess. Like there's things, right? Kiki Jiki, throw him into play, and then you've got all your mana untapped, theoretically. So, I don't know. I get it. I get why it's expensive. I don't think it should be the most expensive, though. I really don't, but altogether, yeah, great card for Commander in your Goblin deck. So I'll give this a 6.1. Again, you put it in your Goblin deck. Next is Inferno. Again, iconic burn spell here. 7 mana, 5 double red for an instant that does 6 damage to all players and all creatures. Now, yourself included, you take 6 to this. The instant speed is the real draw you on Goblin Wizard. You can throw it down on their turn. That's very worth pointing out. Good call. But Inferno doing 6 to everything. Also at instant speed, but again, if you wanted to say the instant speed on this is key, yes. That's wild. That's wild. 7 mana seems like a lot, but Older cards look really expensive, but remember, we had Dark Ritual, we had Black Lotus, we had Basalt Monolith, we eventually had Grim Monolith, we had Soul Ring, we had Fast Mana, we had Mana Vault back in the day. So it was a little easier to get to 7 mana than you might think. And this, combined with the rest of your burn, would sometimes just finish the opponent off. If it didn't finish the opponent off, it would at least kill all of their creatures too. So now we're in a situation where, like, okay, you have to draw the creature that kills you. I have to draw the burn spell that kills you. And so this also saw a fair amount of play at the top end of sort of controlled burn lists, we used to call them. Controlled burn, get it? But it's not the card it used to be. But I still think this is technically Commander playable. I think this is actually very close to Commander playable. I will give this card a 5.3. I will. Mana Clash. This is the card that people used to play in Burn that you're not going to believe me about. This is a single red mana for a sorcery. You and target player each flip a coin. Mana Clash does 1 damage to any player whose coin comes up tails. Repeat this process until both players' coins come up heads at the same time, which takes longer than you might think. Now, it could happen immediately. You could both flip heads right then and there, and then you spent a mana and a card from your hand to do nothing. That's bad. But yeah, turn 1 win if you're lucky. If you're the luckiest person in the world, turn 1 win. I've never seen it happen, but I've heard the legends. But there have been, I don't know what the average is. I don't know what the average number of times it's going to take is. But often this will end up dealing 1 damage to each player. Sometimes it'll end up dealing 2 damage to both players. Sometimes it'll end up dealing 3 damage to them and 1 damage to you. And that's when it's good. This was a 4 of in old school mono red burn because it's a red card that does damage directly to the dome. It could deal 5 or 6 if you're lucky. It really could. It could be a turn 2 loss. Yeah, it's hitting you too. You have a 25% chance of both being heads or both being tails. So what's the chances that both are heads? Does that now decrease it to a 1/8 chance that both are heads? And if it's a 1/8 chance, that means that you might be flipping for a while. You know what I mean? It could work out. And again, no 25%. So you have a 1 in 4 chance. Now, I know from playing Balatro that a 1 in 4 chance for something to happen means that it will never happen. So you could deal 3-4 damage to the opponent with this fairly easily. So Mana Clash did see play. Not playable nowadays by any standards. It's a terrible card. 1.6. 1.6. Orc General is neat. 3 mana, 2 and a red for a 2/2 General. It's an Orc. You can tap it to sack an Orc or Goblin to give all Orcs +1/+1 until end of turn. So not a whole lot of Orcs in Magic, I guess not until we got the Lord of the Rings set. And I'm just going to assume there are orcs in that set. How much is this guy? How much does it cost you to copy this guy? $1.37? That's neat. Not on the reserve list. That's interesting too. But they've never reprinted him. He's just not on the reserve list. But yeah, he's a cool guy. He's a way to give, an Anthem effect to a creature type that doesn't get them. Right? In your Changelings deck, you sacrifice a Changeling to give the rest of your Changelings +1/+1. It could be cool, but I don't know. You'd have to have a reason to sack creatures, but maybe there's some sort of crossroads this sits at to make 1 or 2 specific decks okay. But altogether, I'll give this a 3.1. Sisters of the Flame, the final red card. This is actually kind of neat. You just don't see a whole lot of red mana dorks back then. 3 mana, 1 and double red for a 2/2 summon Sisters. It's a human. You can tap it and add a red to your mana pool. That's what it does. So now I think that in 3 out of the last 4 sets, we have gotten red mana dorks that cost 2 mana. They tap for red. That was, I want to say unheard of before the last few sets, but I guess it wasn't because the Dark has a red mana dork in it. Yeah, red ramp, no downside, not really. You're just paying 3 mana for a 2/2. Like, this is more expensive than a mana dork. I guess they're just telling you that in red, Alana Werewolves cost 3 times as much mana. You know what I mean? But that said, it's still mono red ramp, and you can't hate that, right? So I'll give this a 3.6. Sure. Carnivorous Plant is the first green card. This is 4 mana, 3 and a green for a 4/5 wall. Walls have Defender. It doesn't say this has Defender, but walls have built-in Defender. So a 4 mana 4/5 that cannot attack. Best thing about it is the incredible Quentin Hoover art. We've already seen a number of Quentin Hoover pieces in this set, and he's just maybe my favorite. Maybe my favorite of the old school artists. People say, you know, we had this discussion before I press record, that art has progressed in the last, 20, 30 years. New art is more complex, it's better, and all that. And I think that is somewhat true, but it depends on your definition of better, right? I think that if you look at a Quentin Hoover piece from 1994, there isn't a piece of Magic artwork in 2025 that even rivals this, that comes close to this, in my opinion. But it's subjective. It's an opinion-based thing. But ultimately, yes, techniques have gotten better. What we can do with a computer has gotten better. What we can do with a paintbrush has gotten better and more advanced. We've gotten better products. We've gotten a lot more knowledge in our heads. Like, art has really come a long way, even just since 1994. But you see pieces like this, and you can tell what people mean when they say that they miss the way Magic cards used to look. Let me just say that. But anyway, I'll give Carnivorous Plant like a 2. It's not good. Elves of Deep Shadow. We got a winner here, baby. Actually, we have 3 winners in a row. All 3 of these cards on screen are pretty good. Elves of Deep Shadow is a green mana for a 1/1 elf. You can tap it for a black mana, and it does a damage to you. Awesome. That's really, really good. Like, Elves of Deep Shadow still sees a fair amount of play in commander decks, or at least Golgari-based commander decks. Still a great Magic card, man. I'm going to give, it's basically Llanowar Elves, you know what I mean? But, and that's, Llanowar Elves is really good. What do you give that card? An 8 point something? I don't know. I like the way she looks at me. Yeah, a lot of people want this lady to be their goth girlfriend. Back in the day, people had a crush on Elves of Deep Shadow. And for what it's worth, this is, like, to me, better art than the newer art on this card, because there's at least one new art version of this in the last 15 years, and I think this one looks like way, way better. But I'm gonna give this, man, I'm gonna give Elves of Deep Shadow like a 7.9. You know what I mean? Like, it could be better than that even. It's like, how close is this to Birds of Paradise? Like, really close. This version's a bit pricey, but not so pricey that it's unattainable. Right? You can get this for $18. That means on TCG Player, I bet you can run a copy for $12, $15, which is fine. I think most people would rather get the copy with the newer art because it's only like $1 or $2. But still, if you want a piece of Magic history, like you want an old card that looks awesome and stuff, like, paying like maybe $10 if you get a deal, that's not bad. It's not bad. But I'm going to give, actually more than a 7.9. Because I was thinking about it. What would I give Llanowar Elves? What would I give that card? Probably like an 8. So I will give this card an 8. Zoom in for like 23 more seconds. Jason. Gaia's Touch is up next. I think I'm not going to make that joke. 2 green mana for an enchantment. This is one of the sleeperiest cards in the entire set. And I think this card is only like $3 right now. So keep that in mind. This is 2 green mana for an enchantment. You may put 1 additional land into play during each of your turns. However, that land has to be a basic forest. You may sacrifice Gaia's Touch to add 2 green mana to your mana pool. Isn't this card insane? This goes in all of my green commander decks, which has currently been 2 that I've ever made. It goes in Bellow, Bard of Brambles, and it went in Dina, Soul Steeper, when I made that one. Actually, no, I've made 3 now. I can't believe I just forgot this. I made a Joel Real literally 2 nights ago in paper. I've got Joel Real, Monvuli Recluse, just sitting there on my coffee table. I literally did that 2 nights ago. That deck also has Gaia's Touch. This card is insane. There is, and I hate to give the secret out because I don't want to boost this card's price, but I'm not lying to you. This insane card is $3. Only ever printed in paper in the dark. Only ever printed in paper in the dark. By the way, this is not the reserve list. They could reprint this anytime. They just haven't. They've never reprinted this card. $3. And I bet you could get a, heavily played copy for $2 or $2.50, something like that. And this allows you to play an extra land every turn. And then when you're done with it, you can just sack it for 2 green mana. This card is outrageous. Like, it pays you back later if you want. Right. It pays you its casting cost later. Like, you can just sack it. Like, imagine this. You play it on turn 2. Turn 3, you play your forest for the turn. You play a second forest, and then you sack this for 3 mana. This card ramped you 3 mana in one turn. Like, what, on turn 3, that's, hold on, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6 mana on turn 3, easy. Like, without any Birds of Paradise or Llanowar Elves or any other ramp, just this card, 6 mana turn 3. Like, in mono green decks, and even like green X decks and commanders, so long as you have like forests, you know, they have to be basic forests, but so long as you have them, this card is just gnarly. Crazy. Yeah, play it with Yavimaya, because all lands are basic forests. I don't know if it works that way. Because I don't know if they're basic forests in your hand, like when you play them. But this card is insane. Like, I'm going to give this card an 8.2 and don't question it, because this gives you an extra land every turn and then ramp later. Crazy in landfall decks. It's 2 mana to get down. Like, why isn't this one of the best cards in the set, or like known as one of the best cards in the set? I really don't. It should be. Seriously. It must be a basic force. Who cares? Who cares? It's still well worth it, dude. This card's insane. It really, I will die on that hill. This card is insane. Hidden Path is 6 mana, so that's a lot. It also costs a lot of green, 2 and 4 green for an enchantment. All green creatures gain Forest Walk. You see, you obviously have forests because you have 4 green mana to spend on this card. But if your opponents have forest, now all your creatures are just unblockable against those guys. You know what I mean? So that's neat. That's worth 6 mana. Yeah. Okay. Play this with Yavimaya. Yeah. This is the card you play with Yavimaya. Anybody curious? Yavimaya is just a green, Urborg. Urborg makes all the land swamps. Yavimaya makes all the lands forest. So all green creatures getting Forest Walk could be great, especially if you're the only one that actually has green creatures sitting at the table. You know, everybody else, you just Yavimaya and turn their, plains and islands into forest. That could work out really well. This could just make you completely unblockable the turn you drop it. So that's kind of cute. I'm going to give Hidden Path, like a 5.9. You know, like this is a more than solid card. It really is. Especially if you have a way of like making one of their lands a forest, even if it's not. Like, besides Yavimaya, there's ways of doing that. So give it a go. Land Leeches is 3 mana, 1 and double green for a 2/2 leech with first strike. A creature doesn't get any better. A 3 mana 2/2 doesn't get that much better because you gave it first strike, but it's worth saying that, it kills the goblin 2/2 that we looked at earlier. That's vanilla. Kills scathed zombies, kills gray ogres, always wins in combat. I still don't love it. I'm going to give this a 1.9. Lurker is pretty cool art and a pretty cool name. 3 mana, 2 and a green for a 2/3. It may not be the target of any spell unless it was declared as an attacker or a blocker this turn. So effective hexproof unless it's attacked or blocked this turn. Kind of tough to really deal with. And if you can find a way to give it like an activated ability or something like that, and then just never attack or block with it, I guess that's cool, but altogether not that impressive, really. I'm going to give this a 3.5. Right up. Yeah, more really Shroud, not hexproof, Shroud. Marsh Viper is a poison guy. This is 4 mana, 3 and a green for a 1/2 Viper. If Marsh Viper damages opponent gets 2 poison counters. If opponent ever has 10 or more, opponent loses the game. We all know that by now, right? Pretty bad poison dude as far as poison dudes go. 4 mana for a 1/2 is pretty bad, but I guess if you need all the poison dudes in the world, he's there for you. 2.3. Nile Sylvain. Look how cool this guy looks. Look how much Christopher Rush was cooking. He wasn't just cooking, he was eating. 3 green mana for a 2/2 Nile Sylvan. You pay 4 green mana and tap Nile to regenerate target creature. Pretty cool. If you have the mana. If you have the mana laying around, it's pretty okay. I'm actually going to throw a 5 on this. Yeah, Jim Carrey vibes from The Mask. Yeah, I hate this art. I love this art. Really, I've always loved this Nile Sylvan art. But I'm going to give this right out of 5. I think, it's so mana intensive So mana intensive. This is the first set in print when I started playing. Me too, Sir Egbert. That's why it's so nostalgic to me. But yeah, I have to, even if it's an honorary 5, and it's not, I will give Nail Sylvan a straight up 5. You have the mana to activate this, it's kind of okay. It's all right. I don't vibe with him. I could get not vibing with him. I could. People of the Woods is 2 green mana for a summon People of the Woods with 1/star power toughness. The star below represents the number of forests controlled by People of the Woods controllers. So for 2 mana, you get like a 1/5. It'll always be a 1 something. Just not good. We have, what is it? Flourishing Bloomkin or whatever it's called. Flourishing Bondkin maybe. And that's just a 1 and a green for a creature with PT equal to the number of forests you control, period. And I actually think that guy's awesome. Because he's in standard right now. I'd play him in Stompy. This is much worse. You know, what do you, at the best of times, you're going to have like a 1/8. He is a good blocker. He can't take that away from it. I'm still just going to give this like a 1.8 because that's usually what he's going to be at the top of his game, a 1/8. Sabian Elves is a single green mana for a 1/1 elf. You can pay 2 green and tap it. Target aura that enchants a land is destroyed. Target enchant land is destroyed. Pretty narrow, right? How often are you using this? I don't think you're doing it too often. So I'm going to give this 1.9. I'll give it a 1.9. The times you use it, it's going to be fun. Scarwood Bandits looks awesome. Look how this guy thinks he looks awesome, right? You imagine a guy in real life that did this to himself, he would look really silly. But he would think he looks awesome. Don't I look awesome? Like, nah, kind of look dumb, man. But anyway, this is 4 mana, 2 and 2 green for a 2/2 bandit with Forest Walk. Pay 2 and a green. Take control of target artifact. Opponent may counter this action by paying 2 mana. You lose control of that artifact if bandits leaves play, or again at end of game. It wants you to know you got to give your opponent stuff back at the end of the game. But not very good considering it's expensive to play. It's expensive to use, you know. So I don't love that, but being able to just take control of their artifacts if they don't leave enough mana open is kind of neat. So I'll give the card a 4 because it's kind of neat, you know. Yeah, there goes the Goblin Shrine, the thing that can blow up enchant lands. See? They were thinking. They were thinking. Scarwood Hag is 1 and a green for a 1/1 hag. You can pay 4 green mana and tap it to have a creature gain Forest Walk until end of turn. Or you can just tap her down and have a creature lose Forest Walk until end of turn. There's a lot of Forest Walk in this set, so I guess it makes some degree of sense. I would rather pay the 6 mana to give all my creatures Forest Walk than the 4 mana every turn to give like one guy Forest Walk. But the only thing I can really say about this is that 2 mana for the initial investment. It's pretty good. You know, like 2 mana to just get this on the ground is kind of neat. I don't hate it. 3.2. You know, sure. Scavenger Folk is a single green mana for a 1/1 summon Scavenger Folk. Pay a green mana and tap this to destroy an artifact. You have to sacrifice Scavenger Folk too, but destroy an artifact. This is more like it. I like this more than Scarwood Bandits in a lot of ways. Now, don't get me wrong. I like the idea of taking control of artifacts. And yes, Scavenger Folk saw a lot of play Lord Bios. You are correct. That hand is weird for reasons. But I wonder if it's AI. You know, it can't do hands. And anyway, yeah, Scavenger Folk did see a lot of play back in the day because it's, in a way, it's like the first green creature with like this ability. You know, we're going to bust up artifacts. And in a way, it's also really efficient to do so. A single green mana to get it down. And then as the game goes on, now you can threaten for just a no. Again, just 1 green mana. You can threaten to blow up any artifact for the rest of the game. That was really playable back then. And it's still not the worst thing ever. You know, it's outclassed by like Reclamation Sage and cards like it, but it still ain't terrible. I'll give Scavenger Folk a 4 for old time's sake, you know. Yes, blow up that Ivory Tower, that Black Vice back in the day. Spitting Slug is 2 mana, 1 and 2 green for a 2/4 slug. You can pay 1 and a green and have it gain first strike till end of turn. If this ability is not activated, all creatures blocking or blocked by Spitting Slug gain first strike until end of turn. So this was seen as a 3 mana 2/4, and that's crazy. Like back then, a 3 mana 2/4 was well above rate. You'd have to pay 4 mana for a 2/4, as a matter of fact. So the downside is that anything blocking it gets first strike. Good thing about that is that a large thing has to block it because it still has 4 toughness, Spitting Slug was in the sort of preliminary stompy list, so this card has seen some play from time to time. Giving it First Strike can be good. Obviously, First Strike's a good ability. If you've got it wearing a Blanchwood armor or something, First Strike's incredible, so whatever. Altogether, it did see play, but it's still really bad. And it's kind of a weird-looking card when you really look at it for too long. I'm going to give Slug a 2.2. Tracker. This is 3 mana, 2 and a green for Summon Tracker. It's a 2/2. You pay 2 green and tap it, and Tracker does an amount of damage equal to its power to a creature. Target creature does an amount of damage equal to its power to Tracker. So pay 2 green, tap it, it fights. It fights a guy. This was played too in green decks back in the day because green doesn't have good removal. Outside of Tracker, there wouldn't really be a whole lot of removal in your deck. And as a matter of fact, the fight effect that we kind of got used to in green is based off of Tracker, really. So, Tracker is neat. You can always increase his power in a number of ways. And then suddenly he's just remove a guy every turn. And that was good back then. I think you could still pull something like that off in mono green and Commander. So again, you don't have a lot of good removal. And even the removal that people play is kind of bad. Like people love Kinra's Transformation and Utopia Vow and Lignify. And like those are not great removal spells. Whereas Tracker, maybe. Could be. You know what I mean? So I like this card. I'm going to give this a shoot. Man, I'm going to give a Tracker a 5, assuming that you are increasing his power. In some ways. Song of the Dryads is good. Song of the Dryads actually is good. It just turns a creature into a forest or whatever. That is good. Or just makes it lose all abilities for 3 mana. Venom is up next. 3 mana, 1 and 2 green for enchant creature. All non-wall creatures, target creature blocks or is blocked, are destroyed, or blocked by, are destroyed at the end of combat. So kind of a pseudo death touch. 3 mana for death touch is not great. Jason wants to know Oracle on Tracker because he wants to know if it can actually involve 2 separate creatures. I don't think that it can, just so you know. Yeah, this creature deals damage equal to its power to target creature. That creature deals damage equal to its power to this creature. So, yeah, you can't involve 3 total creatures, Tracker included, in the exchange. But as far as Venom, just death touch, kind of, for 3 mana. Technically a better version of death touch. I want to throw that though. Technically a better version of death touch. But yeah, Venom works on 0 power creatures. That's why it's better. It's not terrible. But I still have to give it like a 2.3. You're not going to play Venom now. Whippoorwill is up next. Doesn't get good until the last couple of words. 1 green mana for a 1/1 Whippoorwill that doesn't fly. Note that this creature does not have the flying ability, even though it is a bird and is clearly flying in the artwork. 2 green mana for tap. Until end of turn, target creature may not regenerate, and damage done to target creature may not be prevented or redirected. If creature goes to the graveyard, remove it from the game. That's the good bit. That's why people actually play Whippoorwill when they play Whippoorwill. This basically allows you to exile any creature that's on its way out anyway. And that was an okay ability back in the day. So I'm going to give Whippoorwill, though, in the modern age, a 1 point. I'll give it a 2. Yeah, could have totally made this flying. I don't know why they didn't. I feel like it was an error, right? Like they meant to, and it just doesn't have flying. But Wormwood Treefolk is up next. 5 mana, 3 and double green for a 4/4 Treefolk. Pay double green and Wormwood Treefolk gains Forest Walk till end of turn, does 2 damage to you. You pay double black, it gains Swamp Walk till end of turn and does 2 damage to you. So, another walk ability, obviously. Land Walk is kind of a theme in the dark. This, I used to like this back in the day because 5 mana for a 4/4 wasn't the worst deal. It really wasn't the worst deal, and this is more or less unblockable against your friend's deck. If my friend's playing Llanowar Elves, they can go unblockable. If my friend's playing, Terror, if my friend's playing Dark Ritual, it's unblockable. And that's not terrible. Cost you a little bit of life, but it's half the life you're dealing to them. So again, I used to think this was a fun dude back in the day. And as far as Treefolk go, could be worse. I'm actually going to give Wormwood Treefolk a 3. Going to give it a 3. Yeah, another classic art. Speaking of classic art, we get into the gold cards here. Let me take a sip. as we round the corner. Marsh Goblins is a black and a red for a 1/1 Swamp Walk Goblins. It wants you to know that it's both black and red, as if you didn't already know that. More Quentin Hoover art, more booty as well. It's always good to see some booty. Anyway, 2 mana 1/1 Swamp Walk. That's not good. So I'll give this a 2.1. How about that? It's Swamp Walks. Scarwood Goblins is a green and a red for a 2/2 Goblin with no land walk ability. That also counts as both a red and green card. So just a 2 mana 2/2 Goblin. That's it. That's all. I will also give this a 1.2. Sorry. Oh, the Tropical Nerd raiding with a party of 10. Thank you for your raid, my friend. We are currently speed running through The Dark, my favorite classic, my favorite of the 4 Horsemen Magic sets. From way back in the day, kind of looking over some nostalgic stuff because Spider-Man and Avatar are happening. So let's remember why we love Magic the Gathering. You know what I mean? So thanks for the raid. Hope your stream was good over there. Thank you. Hey, Nerdy Bartender, what's going on? Good to have y'all in here. We're reviewing cards. Dark Heart of the Wood is the good gold card from this set. This is another one that you may not have seen before, but I actually think this card kind of slaps a little bit. This is a green black mana for an enchantment. You may sacrifice a forest to gain 3 life. And of course, just like all the other gold cards in the set, it wants you to know that this is both a black and green card. So 2 mana for an enchantment, sack a forest, gain 3 life. So kind of a limited Zurin Orb on an enchantment. It's going to proc all of your Enchantress abilities. That's cool. Works especially well in Dina Soul Steeper in Commander because that's a green-black deck that wants to gain life. Has a lot of things like Sanguine Bond. By the way, works extremely well with Sanguine Bond. I just want to throw that out there. Any Sanguine Bond effect that does damage when you gain life. Sack all your forests, kill the table, so that's an idea. But this works with a number of Golgari commanders. Just Dina's my favorite, but there's a few this works well with. If you have life gain triggers in your deck, this is sick. Or if you just want to stay in the game, this works really well with Gitrog Monster because it cares about, lands going to the graveyard. We just got a Jund commander in the Edge of Eternities package that cares about lands going to the graveyard, right? We just got Ice Till Explorer, which allows us to play lands out of our graveyard, along with Crucible of Worlds and a bunch of other stuff. You sack a forest, replay it, sack a forest, replay it, sack a forest, replay it. If you have a Zeus of Lost but Seeking, you can play 3 forests in a turn, obviously. So you just sack, play it again, gain 3, sack, play it again, gain 3, sack, play it again, gain 3. It's a lot of life. So Darkheart has so much that it can do. You have a Dina deck? Man, Optimator, it's a good card for your Dina deck, I'm telling you. Don't you have stuff that triggers when you gain life in your Dina deck? Don't you? Wish your Dark Heart of the Wood was hot like me. It's a sick card in multiple decks. I'm going to give Dark Heart of the Wood a 6.1. If you're not using it, then, it's narrow. It only goes in the 1 or 2 decks. But if you're not using it, you should find a use for it. It's dope. Dope card. But Cold Golem is up next. 5 mana for a 3/3 artifact creature. Pay 3, sack Cold Golem to add 3 mana, red mana, to your mana pool. Play this ability as an interrupt. This card saw play. And I can't for the life of me remember why. But people played Cold Golem back in the day. People really liked Cold Golem. How come? I can't remember. I can't remember what this card does necessarily, but I am going to give Cold Golem a dud of a score. This is like a 2. Like a 2 at the most. I'm probably rating it too high. It's mostly just a 5 mana 3/3. That's not good. Barrel's Cage is up next. I once made a EDH card you could play from the dark video, and I think I put Barrel's Cage the honorable mention. This card's bad though. It's 4 mana for an artifact. Pay 3. A creature does not untap as normal during its controller's next untap stage, or untap phase. So the neat thing about this, let me check the Oracle. Yeah, so this doesn't tap itself to use its ability, and that's cute. That's cute, Magoot, right there. You know what I mean? You can pay 6 mana. 2 dudes don't untap. All right. I guess that's something. Yeah, it is where Ith was trapped. For a dozen years, the cage had held Lord Ith, but as the pretender Marcel's power weakened, so did the bars. the dark. I should have been reading all this flavor text. The dark has really good flavor text. But Barrel's Cage, I can't really pretend this is a great Magic card, but I will give it a 3.5. Serious. Nerdy Bartender, thanks for your follow. And Tropical Nerd, thanks for the raid again. Appreciate that. Yeah, 3 mana, put a stun counter on a creature is not bad. If I can pay 9 for 3 creatures I'm in, you can, baby. I'm telling you, it could be worse. It could be worse. Bone Flute, no jokes. No jokes about playing the Bone Flute, chat. Hey, we're not going to make, because it's not even, there's nothing suggestive about the name. Don't say nothing about blowing on your Bone Flute. 3 mana for an artifact, pay 2 and tap it. All creatures give -1, -0 until end of turn. All creatures. Okay. I'm a sucker for crap like this. This is so bad. It costs extra mana to use it, and you want to use it like most turns. You only get to use it 1 turn during the commander turn cycle. But like, there's part of me that wants to be like, yo, though, fog effect, son. Every turn I get a fog effect. It's pretty bad, though. It's pretty terrible. So I'm going to give this... I'm going to give it a 3, though. You can't stop me. 3 out of 10, baby. Book of Wrath is up next. We also used to call this something else. 6 mana for an artifact. Pay 2 without tapping it, and you pay 2 life to draw a card. Effects that prevent or redirect damage may not be used to counter this loss of life. So you do not have to tap. This is another one. You don't tap this thing. 6 mana is too much to get it down. 6 mana is way too much. All Magic sets should have a book. Yes. Yes, they should, actually. City of Book of Wrath. You know what we used to call City of Brass, too. So you know what we used to call this. We were children. But, yeah, this doesn't tap. So, like, if you have 6 mana, you can pay 6 to draw 3. And, like, that sounds terrible. It's kind of not. It's actually, like, once it's actually in play, you know, pay 2 mana and 2 life to draw a card is doable. You know? It's like right there with your sister. It's pretty doable. I'm going to give this, man, dude, I'm going to give this like a 3.6. I have too much faith in this. I really do. But we are going to look at Dark Sphere. This is a dark horse of a card, dude. This is a playable commander card, I swear to you. 0 mana. It costs you nothing to play this artifact. Tap, sacrifice Dark Sphere to prevent half of the damage done to you by any one source rounded down. Okay. So, if I have, what is it called? A scrap trawler? I think, and there's like a bunch of artifacts. There's like at least 3 artifact creatures I can think of that are like scrap trawler. Or like if an artifact goes to the graveyard, it allows you to put another artifact from your graveyard into your hand of lesser mana value or whatever. There's a few artifacts like this. So you're telling me that with those kind of artifacts, I can just get my Dark Sphere back like every turn? Yeah, Mirror Retriever is like that too. It's one of those. What is it? Junk Heap Scrapper, like Junkyard something. It's from Urza's Destiny. It's kind of like a Mirror Retriever too, you know? And this is nothing. It allows you, there's plenty of ways to like basically get this back from your yard every single turn. Even though it's only, you know, halving the damage from one source, you can still effectively have access to this every single turn of the game. Junk Diver is the name of the card I'm thinking of. But that's just 3. There's more like that. And I think Scrap Trawler is the one that lets you do it like whenever one goes to a graveyard as opposed to an ETB trigger. So there's lots of ways to just like, you just always have this. You just always have this card. And I think in like a Turbo Fog or like another kind of Pillow Fort list that's playing all the propaganda effects and ghostly prisons and Koskin Falls and stuff like that, that like, this is just another piece of the toolbox if you got the combo for it. So like, I do not hate this card, and I'm going to give it a 5.2. Like, I think it's pretty decent. Seriously. And yeah, the cards that let you play artifacts off the top. Yep. There's a lot of those. 0 mana. Just nothing. For an egg, that's true too. It's a 0 mana egg that taps for, like, you sack it for nothing. So it's 0 mana to put an artifact in your yard or get an artifact sacrifice trigger or an artifact came into play trigger. I'm telling you, it ain't bad. How much is this card? Before we get off of it, how much is Dark Sphere? Because I think it's pretty cheap. Yeah, $5.45. So not as cheap as I would have expected, which means I guess there is some demand for it. But still, on TCG Play, you probably get it for $5. I think it might be worth it, depending on what you're doing. Yeah, Cheerios 2.0, exactly. Just eggs, baby. Diabolic Machine's pretty bad. 7 mana for a 4/4 artifact creature. You pay 3, it regenerates. So another kind of control finisher that I have, in fact, lost games to. I have lost at least one game in my life to a diabolic machine. Because it regenerates. Not only can it regenerate, it's huge. It's a 4/4, dude. What do I do about that? So I have lost, but it's a pretty bad card. I'm going to give Diabolic Machine a 2.3. Felwar Stone, we got a hit. We got a hitter, ladies and gentlemen. Felwar Stone is 2 mana for an artifact. Tap for a mana of any, tap to add a mana to your mana pool of any color that an opponent's lands can produce. So, fun fact, we knew Felwar Stone was good right away. Yes, we did. Even in 1v1s. Felwar Stone is good. See people in chat. Felwar Stone saw a lot of play in 1v1. Yep, Felwar, one of the best mana rocks still to this day, especially in Commander, where it is basically Arcane Signet. The chances that everyone at the table is playing a total of all 5 colors are relatively high. Even if they're not giving you a color, big deal. It's still a 2 mana rock, comes into play on tap, taps for most colors. And that's wild. That's so good. Still good in Commander to this day, and did, like people in chat are saying, did see a lot of old school 1v1 play. Because, even in a world with Mana Vault and Soul Ring, a 2 mana rock is still good. It is still good. So, yeah, people did that. Turn 1 Soul Ring into the same turn Felwar Stone. People did that a lot. Felwar is another one of those that sat under glass, and I just thought it looked so cool. Again, Quentin Hoover art. Look at the color palette. It looks so sick. It's just a rock, but it looks so cool. It looks so awesome. And this one sat under glass for $10 at Comics Plus, and I never got a chance to buy it before that location closed down, and I would have to order this off TCG Player 25 years later. But when I finally got a copy of this in the mail, it was a treasured possession for years until I started ordering more. There's a point where I had like 5 copies of this card. I actually sent a copy of this card to someone, a fan who emailed me about their boyfriend, because their boyfriend had recently been through, I think, some into the hospital, had been through some stuff. And, girlfriend reached out to me and said, hey, boyfriend watches your content all the time, and, a word from you would just make him just feel much better about everything that's happened recently. And I feel like it would brighten his day. So I sent him an email and all that. And I also ended up, asking for their address, and I'll send you a signed card. And I sent him a signed The Dark Felwar Stone, because I had enough copies of it. It was a card that meant a lot to me. And what they said meant a lot to me too. So got a lot of personal stories with this card, and it is one of my favorite cards from the set. One of my favorite sets. So love Felwar. I'm going to give this an 8.2 if you don't mind. If you don't mind. Unironically, it was a kidney stone. Was it you guys? Was it y'all? Anyway. Felwar Stone is, I'm going to give it an 8.2 because that's about what I would give an Arcane Signet. And it's more or less an Arcane Signet. Next is Fountain of Youth. Another 0-cost artifact for what it's worth. I think it's worth something, This is an artifact. You pay 2 mana, tap it, gain a life. A lot of casuals played this back in the day, but I could not really call this a good Magic card. I really couldn't, 0 mana for an artifact, though. There is always something to that. And it will trigger your life gain on your opponent's turn and your, a Johnny's Primates decks and stuff, That's kind of nice. Yeah, we tried. Twister, we tried to make this card work. I'm not sure that we ever pulled it off, but be surprised how many, kitchen players' decks this card was in back in the day, Yes, P.O. Box and merch. I should at least do the merch. I've never done merch. That's insane that I've never done that. But the original Healer's Hawk. Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. Yeah. It's this will gain me a life every turn, just like Healer's Hawk. But I don't know. I still have some love in my heart for this card. I will give this a 4. I really will. No, I won't. I'll give it a 3.9. Grazing 4. I'll give it a 3.9. I think you could still find uses for this. Living Armor is 4 mana for an artifact. Tap it, sacrifice Living Armor to put a +0/+X counter on target creature. X being that creature's casting cost. So, pretty bad. For 4 mana, you get a toughness boost. You at least get it immediately. You play it, you tap it, you sack it, and a 4-drop gets +0/+4 forever. Still pretty bad though, right? I guess this could be a fun one in your Toughness Matters deck, right? Like Arcades Sabbath, or really anything that counts toughness. Because a lot of your creatures in that deck, what do they play that, God, what is that dude? He's 2 and 2 green. He's from a recent set. He's playable in Standard. He's a turtle. And he's a 215. His power toughness is literally 215 or something. And so like you sacrifice living armor and he gets to be a 0/30 or like a 2/30 or whatever. That would be a fun play in those decks. Cute. But probably not cute enough. Like super narrow. I'm gonna give living armor a 2.5. I don't think it's that good. You know. Yeah, my Leviathan is now a 10/19. Let's go. Necropolis is 5 mana for an artifact creature. This is a 0/1 that counts as a wall. Pay 0. Take a creature in your graveyard, remove it from the game. Put X +0/+1 counters on Necropolis, X being the removed creature's casting cost. So, in like Insidious Roots, this is 0 mana to remove a creature from your graveyard 1 at a time. That will trigger Roots once, and then again, and then again, and then again. Instead of removing a bunch of cards all at one time, you only get 1 Roots trigger. So this is a cute card if you're trying to play Insidious Roots in Commander. I'll say that much. And anything else that triggers when a creature leaves your graveyard, this is pretty good with, because 0 mana to do this as many times as you want, 1 at a time, which is always important. But again, that's a pretty narrow app too, so... A cool art, by the way, but I will just give Necropolis like a 3.1. You know, most of the time this card's like never going to be good. Never going to be good. Next is the CD. It's Reflecting Mirror. 4 mana for an artifact. Yeah, you think that real life stuff looks bad nowadays in Magic the Gathering? You think that taxi cabs and hot dog carts look weird in Magic? Here's a compact disc. This is in 1994. 4 mana for an artifact. X tap. Target spell, which targets you. Targets the player of your choice instead. X is twice the casting cost of target spell. So, if your idea is that they're going to hit you with a 20-point fireball and you're going to throw it back at them, no, you're not, because you have to pay like 40 mana to do that. But most of the time, a spell that targets you is going to cost somewhere between 2, 3, 4 mana, you know? So let's say the spell costs 2 mana that they're targeting you with. Well, now you can pay 4 mana and throw it at someone else. Anyone else. You know what I mean? Anyone at all. Like, let's say I'm playing with Daquan. You know, me and Power Dragon getting together for a game, and he wants to target me with a spell. Pfft, I can pay 2 mana and throw it at the professor or whatever. We're on an episode of Shuffle Up and Play. I could do that if I had the open mana. Which is kind of neat, but I assume that if people know what this is and they know to look for it, people just won't target you with things, which might be good. But how often do spells target you? Not actually that often, but still, you know, like Lord Bios says, a colorless misdirection. And that's kind of cool. You don't even have to like sack this or anything. It just stays out. It stays out to do this again next turn. So they just can't target you with things if you have open mana, which is kind of neat. I'm going to give this a 5. You know, I think that's probably too high, but yeah, Power Dragon would never fall for that trap. Yeah, you're right. He's way too smart for that. You're just right. But still, I think this is neat. And for the neatness of it, I'll give it a 5. If you have a lot of mana, then suddenly you just can't try to target me. That's the other thing, is no one knows what this card does. Someone's going to forget you even have this, and they'll try to target you with something. You're like, nope. It's right back at you, bub. Anyway, I will give this a 5, because I want to. Next is Rune Sword, 6 mana for an artifact. You pay 3, you tap it. Target attacking creature gains +2/+0 till end of turn. Any creature damaged by target creature may not be regenerated this turn. If such a creature is placed in the graveyard this turn, remove it from the game. If target creature leaves play before end of turn, Rune Sword is buried for some reason. So kind of a take on equipment way before we had equipment. Like way before. So you get it in play for a whole 6 mana. And after you get it in play, you have to pay 3 freaking more mana and a tap just to give a creature +2/+0. Neat that if it slams into something and kills the thing, then it exiles the guy. That's kind of neat, I guess. But it also kind of sucks that you lose your Rune Sword if you lose your creature. Little odd, but this costs way too much mana, really, and it doesn't do enough. So I'm just gonna give this a 2. I think it's like actively bad, terrible actually. +2/+0, I guess, but like on an unblocked creature, I guess it's still bad. It's still bad. Scarecrow is 5 mana for a 2/2 artifact creature. You pay 6 and tap it until end of turn. All damage done to you by flying creatures is reduced to 0. How much is this card? How much does it cost to buy this card? $1.50, and it's never been printed again. It's an uncommon, so it's not reserve list. It looks awesome. Dude, this card is... Okay, so, you know, I was just talking about how 6 mana is too much on Rune Sword. And how, you know, you're probably going to have to pay a lot of mana for Reflecting Mirror. But am I wrong in thinking this is okay, dude? Like, 6 mana is a lot, right? But you just can't get hit by flyers. It also goes really well with Moat. If you do happen to have Moat, you know, that's just non-flyers can't attack you. So all the creatures attacking you are flyers. Boom, pay 6. Now I don't even take that. This is good in, like, Pillow Forts and stuff. Like Turbo Fox. This is actually pretty good, dog. Yes, I'm wrong thinking it's okay. 6 mana is so much. Like 6 mana is probably more than you have to just hold up. You know, so I'm not going to give this a great score. But how much is a Fog every turn worth? That's just it. You only get to use it on one of your opponent's turns, and it only works on flyers. But I don't know, dude. I am intrigued. I don't want to hold up 6, though. The thought of holding up 6 is not good. So I'm just going to give this a 4.2. But it has 2 toughness. So, you know. Yeah, 5 mana for a 2/2. That's a beating, isn't it? That's not good. I don't know. I can't help but like it, dude. That's a cool activated ability. Wish it cost less. Skull of Orm. So this is the first card from the dark that I ever saw in my life. Up Under the Glass at Comics Plus, I thought it looked so cool. And this too, just like Felwar Stone was $10. And stupid 11-year-old dev went into Comics Plus with his like birthday money or whatever it was. And I bought Skull of Orm instead of Felwar Stone because I thought it looked cooler. That's the only reason. Because I thought this card looked awesome. Most 11-year-olds would think it's awesome. It's a skull on a pillow. That's dope. What does it actually do? 3 mana for an artifact, pay 5, tap it, bring 1 enchantment card from your graveyard to your hand. So just bring an enchantment back from your yard to your hand. Costs way too much. 5 mana is too much. It just is. Still technically playable in Commander, though. Technically, because there aren't a whole lot of cards like this. Just allow you to get back 1 every turn. Like, okay, you know, I could see it at the very least. But again, 5 mana it nerfs it entirely. I am now the proud owner of 2 Skull of Orm. And the only reason I have 2 Skull of Orm, they cost what? Yeah, $367. That's actually more than I expected. That is more than I expected. Card is still more than $1 from 8th edition, which means that there is some demand in Commander for this card. Because again, there just aren't many cards like it. There really aren't. But yeah, Colorless Constant Mist is not bad. Yes, kind of what Scarecrow is. But yeah, again, there's some demand for this. But I have 2 of these because after replacing the one that I had in my childhood, it was a card that my dog ate. I looked down one day and Ham was chewing on a magic card, and I was like, oh, please let that be a common or something. And I flipped it over, and my beautiful boy, my son, who I love so much, was chewing on Skull of Orm. So I had to order another copy. I've got 2 Skull of Orm now because my dog ate it. Standing Stones is up next. 3 mana for an artifact. Pay 1 and tap it. Pay a life and add a mana of any color to your mana pool. Effects that prevent or redirect damage can't be used. Counter loss, blah, blah, blah. So this just lets you filter a mana, and it's not good. 3 mana for this ability is terrible, especially considering I have to pay a life to filter the mana. It's not good. Like a 1. I'm seriously going to give this a 1. He was supposed to chew on the bone flute. That's hilarious. Stone Calendar is 5 mana for an artifact. Your spells cost up to 1 less to cast. Casting of spells cannot go below 0. You will not net mana for casting spells. Stone Calendar is really fun. At one point, this was a target of a buyout. People were buying this up like crazy. It's still $10 to get a copy of this card, which is really surprising. I thought it would have gone down by now. But Stone Calendar is pretty cool. All your spells, it ramps you 1. All your spells cost 1 less to cast. And there's probably better ways of doing it, but not with awesome Amy Weber art, right? So I still like Stone Calendar. I'm going to give it a 5.1. I'm going to do that. It should cost like 1 less. Yeah, Stone Calendar, good times. Yeah, people used to play the crap out of this card because you ramp into it, right? You Lana War Elves or Soul Ring or whatever, you ramp into it on like turn 3, and then you untap with it and play, and you go crazy. It was a good card. Speaking of, Tormod's Crypt's a good card too. 0 mana for an artifact. Tap it, sack it to remove all cards in a graveyard from the game, baby. So 0 mana. Maybe next to like Lotus Petal, Mishra's Bauble, and obviously the Mox and Black Lotus, you know. Of all the non-power 9, 0 cost artifacts, this is up there on the list. Yeah, still played in some formats. Crypt is still good. And this is my favorite Tormod's Crypt art. There's been a few different arts at this point, but this is still banging. Christopher Rush was eating in this set, dude. He knew what he was doing. He always did. But I'll give Tormod's Crypt Tormod's Crypt a 6.2. I think this is still playable, not just in Commander, but maybe other formats. A 0 cost artifact that actually does something is wild. So good, dude. I have a signed Tormod's Crypt from Christopher Rush. Man, and RIP, by the way, Christopher Rush, if I'm to understand correctly. He is actually one of 2 artists I could say that about on this page, which is sad. Tower of Corial is 2 mana for an artifact. Tap it. A creature cannot be blocked by walls until end of turn. That is really bad. That is so bad. It costs you 2 mana for this, and that's all it does. 1.1. It's terrible. Wand of Ith is up next. This is by Quentin Hoover. Again, RIP. We used to call this the Popsicle back in the day. It looks like a popsicle. It's 4 mana for an artifact. Pay 3 and tap it. Look at 1 card at random from a player's hand. If that card is not a land, target player must choose either to discard it or to pay an amount of life equal to its casting cost. If that card is a land, the player must choose to either discard it or pay a life. You can't prevent or redirect it. You can only do this during your turn. So, basically, 4 mana is a lot to get it down. 3 mana is a lot to tap it. But once you do, you get a random, they don't get to choose it. You get a random card out of their hand. If it is a land, they can keep it if they pay the mana cost in life. So if you get a 4-drop, they have to pay 4 life to keep that card in their hand. Or they can just discard it. If you haven't hit a land, it's 1 life where they can discard it. So that is a neat effect. Was it an early version of Cursed Scroll? I guess. An offshoot. Yeah, it's a cool effect. I don't know how good the card actually is. I don't think it's very good. But a very cool and unique effect. So I'm going to give it a 3.6 just for that. Also the art. This is I call it the Popsicle, and it sounds like I make fun of it. This is one of my favorite Quentin Hoover pieces. I love, it's like the Felwar Stone background, the same like purple to blue, like soft velvet kind of background. And then look at the pencil work. That's the cool thing about Quentin, is that like you can tell that he's working some in paints and some in like colored pencils. I think a lot of this is colored pencils. And like the dude just looks so cool. His hand looks cool. His wand looks cool. His jewelry looks cool. It's awesome. It's awesome art. Next is War Bards. This is the combo. This is the big combo in the set. This is 4 mana for an artifact. Pay 3 mana. Target creature gains Island Walk till end of turn. If War Bards leaves play this turn, that creature is buried. So you can give your own creatures Island Walk against your island-having opponent. That's neat. Like that about it. But what this actually does is it makes Merfolk Assassin capable of killing any creature. Huh? You know, you remember Merfolk Assassin from earlier in the review? Tap to destroy a creature with Island Walk. 3 mana, give a creature Island Walk. Tap Merfolk Assassin to kill it. Boom! If we had limited back then, this would be the best limited combo in the set. Amazing how big of a deal walls were. Not really. Have you noticed that there's a few cards that care about walls in the set, and only like 1 or 2 walls in the set? It's weird. This, on the other hand, this was just meant to combo with Merfolk Assassin. And the combo, I'll give like a 7 to. The cards by themselves, I have to give like 1s to. The cards are just not good. But maybe, honestly, I will say this. Even without Merfolk Assassin, Warbarge and Commander nowadays, if one of your opponents is on islands, you're just unblockable against them. I don't know. Maybe. City of Shadows is the best card in the set. Do not at me. The next card after that is my personal favorite card in the set. But City of Shadows, I think might not be the most expensive card in the set, but once you get a load of what this thing does, I actually do think it is one of the most expensive cards in the set. If I'm not mistaken, it's like $30. No, 60. Wow, it's $60. So, wow. Third most expensive card in the set whose price we have checked. And there is a reason for that, ladies and gentlemen. City of Shadows is a land. Tap, sack one of your creatures, remove it from the game instead of placing it in your yard. So tap, exile one of your creatures. All right. And you put a counter on city. Tap city to add X colorless mana to your mana pool, X being the number of counters on City of Shadows. So you can proliferate and do all that to get more counters on it, obviously. But what this actually does is in decks that don't mind sacrificing creatures anyway, right? Now, this is nowadays exile a creature you control, but still, if you don't mind doing it, you have a lot of tokens or whatever, then suddenly this takes a few turns, but will eventually tap for 3 mana. Will eventually tap for 2. It won't take long before it taps for 2, and lands that tap for 2 mana are really good. Once it gets tapping for 3, 4 mana, the card is outrageous. And I'm surprised more people haven't found it, but apparently some have. Last I looked at this card, I think it was $25, $30. And good Lord, I should have pulled the trigger. I do not own a copy of this card, and I really should have bought it when it was like $25. Back when you could get a used copy, like heavily played copy for like $10 on TCG Player. Does not feel like it was that long ago. Card is $60 now. $60. Interesting that it says sacrifice before exiling. Yeah, but if you look at the Oracle text, it's just tap exile a creature you control. So you won't get like a you sacrificed a thing trigger, which does make it worse. But I still think in decks with lots of creatures, lots of tokens especially, it doesn't mind getting rid of. And you can put the counter on at instant speed. So like you can sacrifice, you can like block with one of your creatures. And if it's going to die anyway, sacrifice it, exile it, you get mana on or counters on your city. Art also looks incredible. Art looks really, really good, you know. City of Shadows is a cool name. It's just a cool Magic card. But also it's a land capable of tapping for 3, 4 mana. And that's crazy. I'm going to give City of Shadows, even though it takes some time to get going, I'm going to give this card an 8.9. I think that this is probably, if not the best card in the set, then it's right up there with like Blood Moon or whatever. And I'm saying that specifically for, you know, Commander, right? For real, I have like 4 City of Shadows in a random binder from when I first started playing. Geez, Shane, send me one of those. I want a City of Shadows so bad. I do. But seriously, that means you're a rich man. It does. That means you have like $250 in a binder somewhere in your house. So maybe, you know, do something with that. But I will give this an 8.9, and it could be more than that. It takes some turns to get going, but once it does, you know, lands that produce any more than 1 mana are always good. So, love it. Maze of Ith is my actual, factual, personal favorite card in this entire set. And if you want like a little bit of trivia, I guess, there's a guy in there. You see the outline I'm making with my mouse cursor? You see that? That's a guy trapped in the maze. And it's kind of tough to notice that at first glance, but that is definitely the outline of a human body. Maze of Ith is a land. You can tap it. Target attacking creature becomes untapped. This creature neither deals nor receives damage as a result of combat. So you just pull a creature out of combat. Now, this could pull one of your own creatures out of combat if something goes wrong, but what it mostly does is just, you don't have to worry about a creature attacking you for the rest of the game. Like, their best creature at the very least, you know? That's great. I still think that this is insanely playable in Commander. Note that it doesn't tap for mana. Nothing about this card taps for mana. Ever. Which is, it's true of the next couple of lands as well. But I wish that was something they'd experiment with more, by the way. But one way or the other, yeah, this is kind of a removal spell. For free. Takes up a land drop, but it's a removal spell. Kind of. For the rest of the game. That keeps you from taking damage from the largest creature on the other side of the table. That's really good. It's still really good to this day. And this is one of the other cards that was, you know, under glass at Comics Plus forever, completely unattainable, $25 card. And this is also the first card that I bought when I got my first like YouTube paycheck, right? I think that my first YouTube paycheck was for like $250 or something like that. Like we had broken through that month and made, you know, we got a lot of views and, you know, a whole $250 from YouTube that's free money. Basically, you know, at the time I was still working, doing other stuff. And with that $250, I was like, we're going to go out to a nice place. We're going to eat. We're going to get you whatever you want, Brittany, right? And I'm going to order, you know, one Magic card that I want. And that card turned out to be Maze of Ith. I looked through all the old cards that I'd always wanted as a kid, never had the opportunity to own. And Maze of Ith is the one that I chose. And it meant a lot to me to receive this card in the mail. And I cherish it to this day. I have a proxy copy of this and a normal copy of this. Still, 10 years later, or 8, 9 years later. This is one of my favorite Magic cards of all time. So, can I pull up Oracle? Sure. Oracle text for this says, untap target attacking creature, prevent all combat damage that would be dealt to and by that creature this turn. So just remove a creature from combat and untap it. I think it is worth noting that you get to untap a creature too. But that's if it's yours. Most of the time you are targeting your opponent's creature with this. And it's just a removal spell. Just a removal spell for free. A free removal spell. Wild. Should be in every commander deck. Should be in every commander deck. I will die on that hill. I will give Maze of Ith an 8.8. I will give this card an 8.8. I think it should be in all your decks. I think it should be in all your decks, dude. Just play it. Just play Maze of Ith. It's insane. Next is, and almost last, is Safe Haven. This is a land. Also does not tap for mana. Pay 2, tap it, remove a creature you control from the game. Place ability is an interrupt. During your upkeep, sacrifice Safe Haven to return all creatures that it has removed from game directly into play. Treat as though they were just summoned. So this can pseudo like blink creatures, you know. You have to sacrifice the Safe Haven in order to do it. But, one turn you remove this guy, next turn you remove this guy. You can play the ability as an interrupt, which means that if your opponent targets a creature with a removal spell, you can save it with Safe Haven. That's why it's called that. You can save it with Safe Haven in response to removal. And then during your upkeep, you eventually return, 3 creatures into play. This is also kind of nice with sweeper effects on your side of the table because, you tuck a creature under Safe Haven, tuck a creature under Safe Haven, tuck a creature under Safe Haven, Wrath of God. And then on your next upkeep, you get 3 dudes for effectively free. You just sacrifice Safe Haven. So it's a neat card. It's a neat little card here. But not amazing. More good Christopher Rush art, by the way. It's really fun art, but I'm just going to give this... I'm going to give this a 4.3. I think it's too slow nowadays, but I think it's a neat land. I like neat stuff. Sounds good, but never worked that way. No, I don't remember anybody actually doing that, but that is what it's supposed to do. It was too slow back in the day for that, so I can't imagine it's any better now, Sorrow's Path is the final card from the set and probably the most infamous card from the set as well. This is a land. You tap it to exchange 2 of opponent's blocking creatures. This exchange cannot cause an illegal block. Sorrow's Path deals 2 damage to you and 2 damage to each creature you control whenever it is tapped. So, what's the oracle on that bad boy? Choose 2 target blocking creatures controlled by the same opponent. If each of those creatures could block all creatures that the other is blocking, remove them from combat. It's more complicated in oracle text. Each one then blocks all creatures the other was blocking. That's so dumb. Also, do note Oracle does still say whenever this land becomes tapped, it deals 2 damage to you and each creature you control. So if your opponent has a Rishadan Port or an Icy Manipulator, they can just force to tap down. They can force the tapping of your Sorrow's Path to pyroclasm your creatures. That's insane. This is known as the worst, if not the worst, then one of the worst Magic cards to ever be printed. And you can see why. You can certainly see why. You can give them weird squidgy blocks or something with this, which I guess is cool to give them squidgy blocks, but it kind of, let's say that I can switch 2 blocking creatures. So now I'm more likely to kill those 2 blocking creatures on blocks. Well, Sorrow's Path's going to deal 2 damage to my creatures anyway, so how much better did it really make that block? How much worse did it make that block for my opponent? There's a reason that this card is considered one of the worst of all time. Inquest Magazine had its way with this card. Back in the day when Inquest Magazine was a thing, they constantly made jokes at this card's expense, called it the worst card of all time, called it useless. It's $10 now, and most of that is memes. I believe it's reserve list. Yeah, it's part of the reserve list as well, so that probably helps, and it's a rare. And it's very unique. You don't see a card like this every day. If you're playing a commander deck that has a lot of Enrage, maybe there's that. If you are playing Screaming Nemesis in your deck, I guess there's that, So it's not like there aren't ways to do something with the card. Yeah, swap the Death Toucher. See, like people, I have 4 stuffy dolls. Bring it. Yeah, people are coming up with stuff. People are coming up with stuff. And the art is very fantasy battle. You want fantasy art? I imagine some people are going to look at the Spider-Man set and be like, dude, I want fantasy art to come back. But not like this. Probably not like this. Randy did a good job. But they told him, like, do fantasy art. We need some fantasy art from you, Randy. And he's like, okay, what if there's a dragon and then a bridge with some soldiers and then a troll on the other side of the bridge and there's arrows. And there's a wizard in the foreground. There's another knight and he's casting a spell. It's like literally every fantasy trope. Bro is dripped out. You're right about that, Demivia. Bro is the only, like, second only to the Fast Bond Wizard. Fast Bond Wizard is the most dripped out wizard in the game of Magic. I will hear, nothing to the contrary. Let's say Fast Bond. No, not that. Not that. Not that Fast Bond. That's a dumb Fast Bond. This card is banned in Commander, by the way. Look at that. Look at that. How much do you want that drip? How much does that drip be dripping, though? Look at that. Look at that. Purple and gold. Purple and gold with the little throw on the shoulders. Got the big purple hat with the moon on it. Moon's on the pants with the staff. Oh! If I could dress up as any one Magic character for Halloween, this one. Yeah, the tassels, too. Woo-hoo. Oh! The dude he's just got it, dude. He's dripping all over the floor. This dude's second best, I will say. Yeah, now that's a wizard. Yeah, that draw us a wizard. Mark Poole. Mark Poole's like, yeah, I'll draw you. How many wizards have I drawn you already? I'll draw you another one. It'll be the best wizard you ever saw. And that is the best wizard I ever saw. Anyway, Fastbond gets a 10. Can't play it in Commander. Sorrow's Path. I will give a 1 to this card. That is its destiny. It's been waiting 30 years to get this 1. That has been its destiny the whole time. And that is the end. Hit the timer. 2 hours and 35 minutes or thereabout. That is a very good time for a full set speed run. But remember, I think the Dark has like 119 cards or something in it. It is pretty bad set. Pretty short set. Pretty small. It's only 2 pages. This set is 2 pages on Scryfall. And it had a relatively low average score. But again, these early sets be fairly stratified in terms of score. It's going to have a lot of low ones, cards that weren't good. And then really, really high scores on some of them, which we saw here. You got Blood Moon in this set, Mana Vortex is in this set, City of Shadows, Maze of Ith, and a couple of others that are just bangers to this day. So if you never really cared about the Dark before, I hope we introduced you to some sick cards you can play in your Commander decks or some cards you just want. I feel like a couple of these are good buys. Like Gaia's Touch, $253 to buy that card. Why isn't it $10 yet? It will be one day. Go ahead and get a copy. But anyway, y'all, if you're watching on YouTube, I'm going to end the video now because that's enough of your time. Just do all the Patreon stuff if you're into it. Reward me $1 a month for all the hard work and voice losing that I do around here because of doing these videos. And let us know, too, in the comments section of the YouTube portion of this, what old school set you want to see me do next. Is it going to be Alliances? Maybe just we'll go through 3rd edition. That'd be kind of fun. What if we did Ice Age? It would take a lot longer. I'm just letting you know. What if we did Mirage Visions Weatherlight? Those are great sets. I would love to sit down and do this every few months when we have a break in the schedule or whatever, right? So just let me know in the YouTube comments there what you want to see next in terms of these full set speed runs. And I will ask you Twitch folks very soon. Somebody did say Fallen Empires already. Alliances, Homelands, yeah. Don't talk ill of Balduvian Horde. I will not. Wait, when's the negative deck coming? You really want to see the Mr. Negative deck? my real life cousin Jason. Ice Age for sure. 8-hour Ice Age speedrun. It's a cute set. But let me know, YouTube folks, what you want to see down there. And subscribe for more content. I do a lot of it. I'm always contenting, but rarely content, right? But anyway, YouTube folks, do the YouTube stuff on the way out, and I will catch you cats later. I am Deb from The Place. Thanks for watching, Wizards. Spread love and be kind.